please be upstanding for Her Honourable the Mayor and Deputy Mayor.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? No, that's what I thought. I can't hear me either. I've got it turned on. How about that? Oh, that was better, wasn't it? Right. No? Not loud enough. I'll speak up and aim towards the microphone. If I can aim the chair, we'll be okay. Okay, let me know if you can't at some point anyway. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Council. My name is Councillor Carol Jewell. I'm the Mayor of Wokingham and will chair this meeting. Before we start the business set out in the agenda, I'd like to go through a few preliminaries. Please note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. There are no fire drills planned for this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building via the nearest exit and gather at muster point 2, which is located in the car park at the rear of the building. Anyone requiring assistance should remain seated and await the assistance of building support staff. A reminder that councillors do need to stand when speaking in the chamber, and when speaking, please speak directly into the microphone. If councillors turn away from the microphone, the sound will not be picked up by online attendees. Can councillors ensure that their nameplate is clearly displayed in front of them? May I remind everyone that I intend to adhere strictly to the timings set out in the Constitution. The first item is apologies. What apologies do we have?
Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Alawat, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Alder, Councillor Ashwell, Councillor Brunel Walker, Councillor Mather and Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've also got apologies from George Evans.
Thank you. That's it? Any others? No? Okay, thank you very much. We move on then to the minutes of the previous meeting. Just ask if I may sign these as a correct record and have a show of hands, please. I think that's everybody, so that's carried. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor wish to declare an interest in any item on the agenda? Stephen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I need to declare an interest in item 53 of the agenda on the basis that I'm a director of Wokingham Borough Council Holdings Limited.
David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to declare interest on item 53 of the agenda in the fact that I'm a non-executive director of Optalis.
Thank you. Greg Mello.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to declare an interest in item 53 as I am employed by Optalis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Prue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also need to declare an interest in item 53 as a director of WBC Holdings.
Alex.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I need to declare an interest in motion 532. I'm a policy analyst in the cost recovery team of the Department of Health and Social Care. The proposal to extend the years from 5 to 10 years impacts the immigration health surcharge as is written in the motion. So in order of political impartiality, I will have to abstain. Very sorry.
Right, thank you very much. I think that was the longest declaration of interest we've ever had. Okay, the next item is Mayor's announcements. I just wanted to update you on what I've been up to. Lots of events. I'm not going to go through them all, but I've attended many varied events on behalf of the council, and I'd like to highlight 3 of those. I was invited to the King's Awards for voluntary services and was delighted that 3 of the nominations are based in Woking Borough. They were Woking in Need, Kaleidoscope and Hurst Bowls Club. It's a huge honour to be nominated and is testament to a lot of hard work and commitment by the 3 organisations. The decision on the winners will be announced in November. On a very hot day in August, I attended the Swallowfield Show. It is an event that began in 1885 to, I quote, benefit the villagers' cottagers. Now it serves a much wider audience and was well attended, with a huge array of stalls as well as horticultural and arts competitions and horse and dog shows. It is another example of the hard work of volunteers in our borough. A few weeks ago, I was invited to take part in the groundbreaking ceremony of the Natural History Museum's Research and Digitisation Centre. The new facility is being built on a site in the Thames Valley Science Park and is a collaboration with the University of Reading. The building will be state-of-art and constructed with the lowest possible environmental impact. It will eventually house 28 million specimens, about 1/3 of the museum's vast collection. Now an advert for the Mayor's Honours Awards 2026. The award scheme is open to adults, young people and community groups, and we're looking for individuals who have made an outstanding contribution to the borough, whether they are resident, individual, group, or a serving Woking Borough Council employee. Please help us spread the word and get a good number of nominations. That's my announcements done. I would now like to invite the leader of the council, Councillor Stephen Conway, to make a statement which relates to recent events of social unrest that has been witnessed across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Many of us have been horrified by the scenes of disorder that we've recently seen on our screens. The news is dominated by the shrill voices of those who wish to promote division and disharmony, pitting group against group, one part of the community against another. Even here in Wokingham, we have seen a totally unacceptable resurgence of the use of racist language. Racist language and divisive rhetoric are the opposite of what I believe decent, humane and law-abiding people in Wokingham want. The core mission of the current administration at Wokingham Borough Council is to help create vibrant, thriving and inclusive communities where everyone feels that they can play a part. Inclusive communities, it should go without saying, are totally incompatible with any form of racism. Inclusive communities are happier and more contented communities. Everyone, regardless of who they are, has the opportunity to realise their potential and to feel valued and fulfilled. Inclusive communities are also more successful communities. When everyone feels able to contribute, we more effectively tap the talents in our midst. If talent is given the chance to express itself, we increase our productive potential and become a more thriving and successful community. We all win, in other words, when we are inclusive. Despite the hateful and discordant voices receiving disproportionate coverage in some parts of the media, we as a council will not be deflected from our efforts to create truly inclusive communities where everyone, whatever their background or characteristics, feels that they belong and can play a part. I should add that the Chief Executive has conveyed the same message to our officer colleagues. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We move on then on to item 42, which is the public question time. I'd like to remind the Executive Councillors that responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and these will be timed. We have 5 public questions. Mr. Wheat, please will you put your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. During the time I've lived near Shepherd's Hill Roundabout, London Road, on the edge of Woodley, there have been 77 accidents, including 7 serious accidents. Recently, there was a serious accident on Friday, the 29th of August, where a cyclist was hit by a car and later died. What is the council doing to improve public road safety at this accident hotspot? Thank you.
Peter, thank you for your question. We should not accept the number of people killed or seriously injured on our roads, in the country as a whole or in Wokingham. Road users such as pedestrians, cyclists and motorcyclists are more vulnerable and are harmed disproportionately. The police are investigating the collision on the 29th of August, and council officers will work with the police to understand the causes and any contributory factors. I know you understand I cannot talk about that incident more at this stage, other than to express my heartfelt condolences and those of the council to the family and friends of the deceased. As we discussed when we met 2 weeks ago, the council and I take our road safety responsibilities very seriously. We review annually all reported road safety incidents where there's been an injury to identify cluster sites to investigate further. At these locations, formal police reports are analysed to understand the circumstances and to identify if any measures can be implemented that would reduce or remove the likelihood of a repeat. We look at the past 5 years of data, which is the national standard, in which there have been 10 reported incidents in the vicinity of the Shepherd's Hill roundabout. These occurred at multiple locations around the elongated roundabout and had not, in previous reviews, identified a cluster requiring priority attention. However, in the light of the tragic incident last month, and having discussed the general situation at the roundabout with you and officers will look again at what changes could be made in the area, both at specific locations and in general. The initial investigations have identified the main contributory issues have been driver behaviour or impairment through alcohol or drugs, though I stress this does not include the most recent incident, which will in turn be reviewed when the police investigation is complete. Changes which might mitigate collisions in this area will be considered. Thank you again for raising this issue, and I promise to keep you in touch and update you when there's more to say.
Thank you very much. Peter, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor, thank you. And thank you for your response. My supplementary question is this. Would the council consider converting Shepherd's Hill Gyratory into a Dutch-style roundabout, similar to the one implemented by Hemel Hempstead Council? Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Dutch-style roundabouts have much to offer in the right locations, and Wokingham Borough has previously considered the installation of such a design in another location. The examination of the collision history will be used to determine what options will be applicable at Shepherd's Hill, but nothing will be ruled out.
Thank you very much. Move on to the next question then. Peter Humphreys, would you like to ask your question, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You don't know what you're doing is a popular refrain from football fans when a referee makes a series of obvious mistakes. The chant is equally applicable to the dysfunctional roadworks in Wiltshire and Crutchley roads. Firstly, an officer surveyed the proposed site and spray painted an outline of a new zebra crossing in Wiltshire Road with the groundworks extending into the adjoining Crutchley. A different contractor commissioned to surface dress Crutchley then covered the markings with bitumen and gravel chippings. The zebra team then took revenge by digging a trench, ripping out the carriageway repairs and dumping the resulting debris on the road. This came as a total surprise when the other contractors returned to surface seal the chippings they had previously laid. Thus, they were forced to abandon their top sealing works. Bizarrely, the zebra crossing includes replacing textured paving with identical textured paving, but in a different colour. WBC talks about collaboration and cooperation with partner organisations, yet can't coordinate two separate contractors working directly for the Highways Department. As neither contractor was informed about the other's works, it is the residents that will have to pay the cost to rectify the unfinished farce. How much would it cost us all?
Thank you, Peter. As a former football referee myself, I am familiar with your term, and that it's occasionally expressed without a full view of the situation. I'm afraid there's no video replay available for street works, even for Premier League operators such as Wokingham, but I am happy to explain to you how the play unfolded. Crutchley Road was surface dressed this summer to restore skid resistance and prevent the onset of potholes. The original plan was adapted to prevent conflict with the zebra crossing works, but regrettably the contractor misinterpreted the marked instructions on the road and did dress an additional 15-metre section. This issue was identified by WBC's inspector the following day. The unfinished work was made safe without incurring extra cost, whilst the zebra crossing work was undertaken. There will be no cost to the taxpayer for this. Areas around the adjoining junction were already scheduled for a higher level of intervention, plain and inlay resurfacing, which will take place in October half-term, and thus were correctly not addressed.
Sorry, can I interrupt you, please, Adrian? Pauline, you've got...
Sorry, Madam Mayor, to disturb you. We can't hear a thing of what's being said over this side at all. There's something wrong with the PA system, I think.
Have you tried pressing the plus on your thing? It seemed to help me.
Is that me or Pauline? Sorry.
Right. Can I suggest we just stop for a moment? Let's see if we can adjust some of the audio. But thank you for letting us know. I think it's because Adrian's too tall, actually, but... Peter, sorry, I think you can understand we're having trouble with the system, but we will get back to you once we've sorted it. Okay. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. We're just pressing the plus now. Oh, yeah, that's made a difference, hasn't it? Yeah. Maybe, Adrian, if you test yours.
Can you hear me? On the left wing.
I have never been accused of that in my life before.
Is any better? Any better? All right, okay, right. I shall resume. So, areas around the adjoining junction were already scheduled for a higher level of intervention, plain and inlay resurfacing, which will take place in the October half-term and thus were correctly not dressed as part of the original scheme. The colour of textured paving is an important aspect of the accessibility of crossings and was updated to the latest standard as a part of this work. So in summary, we are undertaking 4 separate processes in this small area, each optimised for each part of the road, with specific requirements and multiple steps in each. Like some referees, occasionally contractors make a mistake, but I can assure you there will be no residual cost to the taxpayer or degradation in the final product.
Thank you. Peter, do you have a supplementary?
Always do. I'm pleased to hear it's going to be remediation is going to take place at the various points that I've mentioned. I would add that pink paving was removed and yellow put in, but then 400 metres down the road, they put in pink. So I don't know what the colour difference is meant to be, because they've replaced one and been inconsistent, but there we go, it is what it is. I mean, it has been claimed that the surface dressing would provide prolonged road services for up to 10 years, but the reality at the Sarum Crutchley Junction has been it deteriorated in about 10 hours. And as soon as it rained, there was puddles everywhere. In the adjacent Wiltshire Road, remedial works carried out after the first surface dressing were rectified a few months later after a previous head of highways officially said it had failed. I challenge you to visit the aforesaid sites to see just how poor quality the roadworks have been, and then report back to next month's full council meeting whether you'd be prepared to accept this incredibly low standard in your own driveway. Will you accept the challenge?
A couple of weeks ago, I went out with officers and visited all of the locations, almost all of the locations, which have raised a complaint or a query from residents. So I'm very familiar with what has happened as a result of this. I'd be happy to meet you there, Peter, have a look at it. I think I've got a good understanding now of the process by which we do surface dressing. I'm expecting a question later on this as well, so I will go into more depth then. But it is important that everybody understands that surface dressing is not a resurfacing process. It's a process that's applied for two reasons, primarily: to restore the skid resistance of the road surface and to seal it to prevent the onset of further potholes. It also has a significantly lower carbon footprint than plain and inlay resurfacing. It doesn't give the same finished surface as a plain and inlay resurface, and sometimes residents see that as a failing, whereas what may have been delivered is exactly what was intended. As I say, I'll very happily meet you there and look at the specifics of this case.
Thank you. We move on to the next question, which comes from Leon Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. My question is, what strategies have the Council implemented in the last 2 years to mitigate traffic congestion in Sonning specifically? And what is the calculated environmental impact of traffic stood still in the village?
Thank you for your question, Leon. Our strategies for tackling congestion are by definition not local to any one area. Traffic congestion affects many parts of the borough, and traffic is fluid, especially in an era of sat-navs with traffic capabilities, and localised strategies would most likely result in displacement of traffic to other areas. There are, of course, particular issues in Sonning, as the only vehicle crossing of the Thames in the local area. There's a well-established aspiration to build a new bridge across the Thames as part of the Transport for the South East Strategic Infrastructure Plan, which WBC supports. There's not yet agreement on this across the local authorities involved, though this might be achieved following the devolution proposals, which include a transport role for the strategic authority. 2024 Air Quality Annual Status Report includes data from 2 monitors on Thames Street in Sonning. The most recent data measured 20.8 and 21.8 micrograms per cubic metre NO2 average mean concentrations, compared to a compliance level of 36. These locations follow a similar pattern to the rest of the borough, with a significant drop-off following the pandemic, but a slow rise in recent years. The Council has taken enforcement action against HGVs abusing the Sonning Bridge weight limit, both to protect the bridge, but also to reinforce that this is not an appropriate route for large vehicles which can exacerbate traffic in the village. Sonning will, of course, benefit from our general strategies to tackle congestion, emissions and air quality. We are investing in bus service improvement, which in the Sonning area includes increasing the frequency and hours with the 850 bus service and supporting the new 127 service between Reading and Maidenhead on weekdays. Our walking and cycling strategy includes improvements to the A4 cycle route, which connects Sonning to Twyford and Reading. Finally, significant investment in EV charging will make EV ownership easier, delivering some improvements in air quality as well as CO2 emissions, even if it will not itself reduce congestion. This and more is covered in our local transport plan, which was adopted in March this year, which I commend to you.
Leon, do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. Yes, I note the mention of HGV enforcement, which stems back to mid-2022 under the Public Protection Partnership. So that is not a new strategy. The council also approved application for moving traffic offences back in March of 2023. That's also not new in the last 2 years. I note the answer of the councillor, which is basically a strategy local to Sonning would move it elsewhere. That is absolutely what is needed. I don't know when the last time was that he was in Sonning. Traffic numbers are up 3.5%. with no numbers available for 2025 alone. It is at times an absolute gridlock here. In relation to the third bridge, I wonder if the council can speak to their bridge blocking counterparts in Oxfordshire and put the residents of Sonning and Berkshire absolutely first. I also note that in May of this year, the Liberal Democrats stood on an election manifesto commitment to reduce transport emissions in accordance with the council's climate emergency action plan. Therefore, my question is, of the number that the councillor has just cited, what is the percentage reduction that they have achieved in the last 2 years or modelled here in Sonning specifically? And given that all targets need to be smart, what is the percentage reduction in congestion and vehicle emissions in Sonning that the council will commit to by the next election? And will the council commit to regularly reporting back on how they're combating this issue?
Thank you, Leon. I think I explained that's not how we approach these issues. I will, however, say that I met with my counterpart from Oxfordshire last week, and he's coming down next week, and he is aware that one of the issues we'll discuss is the new Thames crossing.
Thank you very much. The next question I have is to the Executive Councillor for Children's Services, and it's James Westhorpe.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to ask, please can you update me on the progress when the new sixth form building at Embrook School will be completed? Or started in that sense?
Thank you for your question. As planned, the enabling works have progressed well over the summer holidays and are largely complete, with the ground reinstated and ready for project delivery. One outstanding item, which is testing of a single trench of gas pipe work, remains outstanding and will be completed over the October half term.
James, do you have a supplementary?
I do, yes. I've noted that in a council meeting on the 31st of July, the council committed to actually announcing a plan on the 5th of September, when enabling work, as you've rightly highlighted, has begun, is now complete. It is to be completed and regularly updated through the Wokingham Borough Council website, which identifies the timeline for the project, including the dates when construction of the facilities will be complete and when the new building will actually be open for use in September 2027. It's been specified that the plan will be made available to parents and the local community and be published on the Wokingham Borough website. However, at this particular stage, I haven't noted anything. As you highlighted, it would be done by the 5th of September. Do you know when this will appear?
I fear that this is partly my fault because I have in fact been in hospital since almost the 5th of September. I was already ill by then, and I haven't had an opportunity. This is my first day back since then, so I will find out when it's going to be published, but I can promise you that we have every intention of sticking to the project, and we would not be paying for enabling works were we not going to proceed with it.
Thank you very much. Move on to the next question, which is from Andy Croy, asking a question of the Leader of the Council. Andy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In 2023, this council passed a motion saying that WBC would be applying to be a borough of sanctuary for refugees. During the debate, the issue of racism and the plight of refugees in the former hotel at Sindlesham were highlighted. The leader's recent statement in the newspaper, not the one he made 10 minutes ago, on any relocation of refugees from Sindlesham did not mention the borough of sanctuary. I hope I am mistaken. I am sure he will agree it is a pertinent consideration that WBC should not be hiding. One of the borough's members of parliament has been subject to racism. In at least one case, this was associated with a threat of physical violence. The far-right organised campaign to appropriate our national flags has caused real fear among some of our residents who know the campaign originates from a place of hatred. I congratulate the people of Winnish for refusing to be intimidated by this campaign and taking down the flags. Does the leader agree with me that racism in our borough is not fought by hoping it will go away, but by speaking for the vast majority and saying at every opportunity, racism is evil, it is not welcome here?
Thank you for your question, Andy. It's good to see you again, as always. The short answer is yes, I do agree with you. The longer answer requires me to draw attention, you've already drawn attention to it yourself, to the statement I made at the beginning of the meeting, which repeated what I said at last week's executive. And I hope that provides clear evidence that we are in agreement on this subject. To demonstrate further our commitment to tackling racism, our new council plan includes a priority to ensure people feel, and I'm quoting, people feel safe in their community, including those who have experienced antisocial behaviour, discrimination or hate crime. And I probably should add that our new EDI policy aims to make Wokingham a borough where people trust and respect each other and a place where everyone feels they belong. Thank you.
Andy, do you have a supplementary?
I do, I'm afraid. Thank you, Stephen. I didn't see the executive meeting last week, and I suspect many residents didn't see the executive. I suspect many residents also won't be aware of your statement that you've just made. So I guess what I'm asking for, and I'm hoping that you will agree to, is that there is a much stronger sense of not just talking about inclusion, which is what we talk about when things are going well. It is about an utter condemnation of racism. And that isn't just in this council chamber, that is also using the borough's social media and in our press releases. I hope you all, can you see to it that the borough takes a much more explicit anti-racist view. We need to call it out for what it is and not ignore it and not hope the nice things will make it go away. Can you agree to that?
I think I can agree to that, but I do think it's worth remembering that the reassurance that many of our communities need, and you quite rightly highlighted the anxiety there is in many parts of our community about racism and some of the violent language that's been used by people on the far right, that requires, I think, a statement of our commitment to inclusivity. That's why I made that point. I think it is important. Of course, I agree with you completely. We need to be explicit about our rejection of racism, and I will continue to do my best to ensure we are. But it is necessary also to remind people what the benefits of inclusivity are. Benefits to all of us. It's really important that we do that.
Thank you very much. That concludes the public questions. Peter and Andy, you're very welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but can I ask that you view the meeting from the public gallery? Item 43 then is petitions. Does anyone wish to submit a petition? No? Okay, I shall continue then. On to item 44. I understand Prue Bray is proposing a report. Is that correct, Prue? And do you have a seconder, please? Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. I'm not going to speak for a long time. I think the report speaks for itself. It is slightly unfortunate that the timing with which we have to produce our plan is dictated by the central body of the Youth Justice Board. So it actually has to come slightly retrospectively to Council itself. I would commend it to you. We have an excellent service now. They've been rated good. They're receiving some national recognition. And I'm particularly pleased that they are the prevention and youth justice system. So like the rest of the council, we are focusing on early intervention and prevention so that young people don't get mixed up with the criminal justice system if we can possibly avoid it. So I commend the report to you.
Thank you, Prue. Does anybody wish to speak against the report? No? So we'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. So item 45 is a review of the allocation and appointment to seats on committees and boards. The report about this has been circulated in the supplementary papers, which you should all have with your agenda. I understand, Stephen, you're going to be proposing a report. Do you have a seconder?
I do, Madam Mayor. Imogen is seconding.
Thank you. Carry on.
I hope this won't detain us very long. Now we have the supplementary agenda items and appendices that accompany them. I hope it's very clear. This review was necessitated by Margid's resignation from the Labour group, and the new distribution of seats has been calculated on the basis of proportionality. In essence, the Conservative group will gain some places, the Labour group will lose some places, and the Liberal Democrat allocation remains unaltered. I don't think I need to say any more, Madam Mayor, and I hope we can just move to support this reallocation that's been necessitated and has been carried out on the basis of strict proportionality.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak against the report? No? So we'll move straight to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Move on to item 46, and that's the updates to the Council's constitution. Please note that Appendix 2 for this item has been circulated, and that's in those supplementary papers you have with you. I understand Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubay, you'll be speaking. Do you have a seconder, please? That's it, thank you. Imogen, if you'd like to carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is important that we keep our constitution up to date with the changes in legislation, and some of our procedures need to be updated for clarity. This report has been sent previously to all of our political group leaders, and we've incorporated their feedback, and now it asks Council to approve the following points. Item A in Appendix 1, procedures and motions for amendments. As the name describes, it contains the procedures for motions and the amendments to motions. We have had some recent confusion on this, and this appendix makes the process clear for all members too. The officers are working on a flowchart which will eventually be included, but it is important to get the text approved at this point. Item B is the amendment to section 12.3 of the procurement and contracts rules, which will bring us in line with the national legislation and ensures that we are compliant with the Procurement Act. It was initially thought that we could exclude VAT for procurement and contract items under £30,000, but since then external advice has been provided, and it states that we need to include VAT on all items. We are also updating the requirements for contracts over £100,000 too, which need approval from Strategic Procurement Board, and to clarify the direct level approval thresholds. Item C is an update to 12.9.3, which is all about the acquisition of communications data and the use of covert surveillance. The legislation allows data to be gathered in order to prevent serious crime, and now requires the Chief Executive to be the senior authorising officer for this, instead of the monitoring officer previously. So this amendment reflects that change. And then item D, the Audit Committee have agreed and updated the anti-tax evasion policy, and this has also been reviewed by the Constitution Review Working Group, so this is now being included in this Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody like to speak against the report? No? Okay, we'll move straight to the vote. All those in favour of accepting that report, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 47, which is the appointment of an independent remuneration panel. I understand, Stephen, you're proposing this report. Do you have a seconder?
I do.
Thank you, Lou.
Lou. Would you like me to present it now?
Please do.
Again, there's not a great deal I need to say on this other than to express my thanks to the three applicants, Karina Disney, Nick Fellows and Jeremy Wood, for their willingness to take on this important role. I'm sure the whole council would like to thank them for their public spiritedness, and I hope will endorse their appointment.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to speak against that report? No, we'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Move on to item 48. And that's the pay policy statement. I understand that Councillor Rachel Bishop-Firth, you're proposing a report. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I do, Councillor Lou Timlin.
Thank you. Would you like to present the report?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Woking Borough Council is committed to treating our staff fairly. This annual pay policy statement shows how we meet that commitment on employee pay. It reflects our approach, which is to be open, transparent and fair. It shows how we use reward to attract the very best staff to serve our residents in an ever more challenging environment, while always being aware that salaries are paid with public money. The report meets the requirements of the Localism Act by providing a clear and comprehensive annual statement of our pay policies. Last year, Councillor Rachel Burgess asked if we could add information from our annual Gender and Ethnicity Pay Gap report to this statement, which we have done here. The Gender and Ethnicity Pay Gap report is, of course, also published as a full separate document. This statement explains the systems which the Council uses to set employee salaries, both when an employee joins the Council and as they progress, and how we ensure that these salaries are fair and equitable. It also explains the circumstances where employees may be paid more, for example, when undertaking additional duties, and our policy on redundancy pay. It outlines our clear framework for setting salaries, our commitment to equal pay for work of equal value, and our transparent process for reviewing and adjusting pay. There are some points I'd like to highlight. Firstly, we not only meet the legal minimum pay requirements, we pay all of our eligible employees more than the higher voluntary real living wage. Our pay differentials, for example, between the highest to lowest paid council employees, are well below the maximum recommended levels. On the gender and ethnicity pay gap, the information shown here is for 2024. There is a typo on the first line of page 171 where it says 2025, and I've asked Democratic Services if we could please correct this. The Employment Staffing Committee reviewed the 2025 figures last week, and these show that the gender pay gap, the difference between the average hourly pay of men and women employed by the Council, has narrowed from the gap of 15.7% shown in this report to 11.6% for March 2025, with no median ethnicity pay gap. This reflects the HR team's commitment to fairness and equity in HR practices, from recruitment to career progression. I'd like to thank the officers for all of their work on this and to recommend this statement for your acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody that would wish to speak against the report? No? Okay, we'll move straight to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Move on to item 49. Yep. And that's the Climate Emergency Action Plan 6 Progress Report. I understand, Catherine, you're proposing the report. Do you have a seconder, please?
Yes, Councillor Glover.
Thank you. If you'd like to carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In 2019, Woking Borough Council declared a climate emergency. Since then, we have made progress, but the emergency has only grown more urgent. The Office for Budget Responsibility recently highlighted that the costs of tackling climate change are falling, while the price of doing nothing is rising steeply. Renewable energy is now the cheapest source of power, and the technologies that will help us cut emissions are advancing rapidly. Every delay makes the eventual cost to society higher, both financially and in terms of damage to our homes, health, and security. Acting now is not just the right choice for the environment, it's also the most cost-effective path for the country. This report includes the 6th annual update of our Climate Emergency Action Plan, which sets out around 70 actions across 9 priority areas. I want to share some highlights from the year to March 2025, which this report covers. Firstly, our local plan update contains significant proposals to ensure that future development has as little negative impact on the environment as possible. We achieved Tree City of the World status, and this international certification reflects our dedication to urban forests, providing us with a framework for healthy, sustainable urban forestry that will benefit residents for generations. Cross-council working has been critical. Climate considerations are now embedded in our procurement processes, including major contracts, ensuring that our environmental commitments shape decisions across the authority and by our partners. Our work is being noticed beyond the borough. In the National Council Climate Scorecards, Wokingham was recognised for one of the biggest rises of any single-tier authority over the previous 2 years. This is a testament to the dedication of our officers and also to my predecessors in this role, and I'd like to thank them for their efforts. I would also like to thank colleagues on Overview and Scrutiny for their input and review over the past year as we keep the action plan up to date and relevant in changing circumstances. Of course, no one can address this emergency alone. Some actions are within our control as a council, but many require businesses, individuals, national governments, and international cooperation. That is why partnership is at the heart of our approach. We all know that we face increasing financial pressures as a council, yet many of the actions in our Climate Emergency Action Plan are financially beneficial. We are also making the most of available grants, from the Warm Homes Grant, helping families in both social and private housing to stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer, to the Low Emissions Vehicle Infrastructure Grant, which allows us to unlock further private investment in electric vehicle charging. Ultimately, safeguarding nature and the environment is essential for our long-term security. Wokingham has many strengths in business, in education, in our communities. By working together, we can not only rise to the challenge of climate change, but also prosper through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the report? Yes, I've got 3 hands. And Moses was the other one. Yeah. Okay. So the seconder, Catherine, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I reserve my right.
Thank you. Can I just make sure who wants to speak again? So I've got 1, 2. We'll lead them out in a minute and just to check.
I suspect, Madam Mayor, they're not speaking against. I think they're speaking in favour.
Yes. Okay, we'll start. I think whatever. We'll start with Dave Edmonds, please.
You're missing.
Thank you very much. I rise to speak on the recommendation before us tonight regarding the revised Climate Emergency Action Plan. Sorry. Let me begin by stating clearly, this administration's record on climate action is a failure. And what we're being asked to approve tonight is less a plan for the future and more a disaster recovery document, attempting to salvage credibility after 3 years of inaction and missed opportunities. When the Liberal Democrat leadership took office in 2022, they inherited a clear target, net zero by 2030. A target that, while ambitious, was achievable. Yet here we are, 3 years on, and what has actually been delivered? Very little. There has been no meaningful progress towards that target, just revised plans, warmer words and more ambitious spending proposals, with no clear delivery mechanisms and no accountability for failure. Meanwhile, emissions remain largely unchanged and the borough is no closer to its climate commitment than it was 3 years ago. Let's not pretend otherwise. The Liberal Democrats have been asleep at the wheel. The net zero by 2030 target is now, quite frankly, unachievable, and the public can see that. Residents are tired of slogans and delays. They want action and they deserve honesty. If this council is serious about tackling the climate emergency, and I believe many of us are, then we must start by acknowledging the scale of the failure we've witnessed under this administration. Only then can we have a credible conversation about what is possible going forwards. So tonight, I urge colleagues to do three things. 1, acknowledge that the 2030 target is no longer deliverable. 2, reject the spin that this so-called revised action plan, which offers little more than expensive ambition, will be credible for delivery. Thirdly, the call for a new evidence-based target backed by a realistic, costed and independently reviewed plan with clear milestones and proper scrutiny mechanisms. Because if we don't learn from this failure, we'll be doomed to repeat it and our communities will pay the price. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the next person on my list, which is Peter Harper.
Madam Mayor, it is with sadness that I am speaking against this item because I have been calling for more action on this issue for several years, but my pleas appear to have been ignored. At the budget setting meeting in February, I highlighted the lack of progress on the delivery of key elements of the Climate Emergency Action Plan, with significant capital projects delayed year on year. I called for political leadership to make these critical parts of the plan to be delivered now. And we can see from this report the impact that lack of delivery has had on our progress towards net zero. The shortfall between where we need to be to achieve net zero by 2030 and our CAP delivery is currently 171 kiloton CO2 equivalent. Last year, the gap was 167. We now have a bigger gap than we did 12 months ago. So instead of making progress towards achieving net zero by 2030, we have gone backwards. This is a woeful record of failure. Madam Mayor, time is rapidly running out. We are less than 5 years from 2030, and it is clear that this council will not meet its commitment to net zero by that time. The officers are valiantly trying to deliver this plan, but without the necessary political will and focus, they are fighting a losing battle. The project delays are numerous. Barkham Solar Farm, delayed another 6 months. The original date was 2023 and is now 2027. It's a shame that the former executive member for climate change couldn't get WBC further up the SSE priority list so that we can deliver in 2026. Improvements in energy efficiency of the council's own buildings was a medium-term deliverable last year. It is now kicked into the long grass for delivery in 2029-30. There is no one to blame for this delay but our own executive members. We've delivered 44 on-street charging points against 12,000 properties without off-street parking. Amazingly, it has been announced that we have applied for a reward for this pitiful progress. 30% of the council's office waste is recycled against a target of 70%. We should be leading the way in recycling and showing our residents how it can be done. Instead, we are lagging behind. Madam Mayor, it is time this administration took this plan seriously, supported the officers and gave it the priority it desperately needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Call on Councillor Ian Gumvana. Moses.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today looks like another deja vu. The date for connection of Barkham Solar Farm to SSEN has become like shifting sands. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, it is worth repeating that the date for the connection has been shifted 3 times within the last 6 months. First, it was stated to be summer 2026 as at February 2025. Then it was changed to autumn 2026 in July 2025. In less than 2 months, it has now changed to spring 2027. Only at the July 31st meeting of the Council, I reiterated my concerns that there was no likelihood of it being connected to SSEN in autumn 2026, because all indications are that it lacks the fundamentals of a properly directed and managed project. The direction and management of this project do not appear to pass the basic continuing business case justification of balancing costs, benefits, and risk. Hence, when it, if eventually delivers, it is likely to be at significant cost, loss and cost to the residents of the borough. The meeting of the Climate Emergency Overview and Scrutiny Committee for September 2025 was cancelled because the July report was yet to be presented to the Council for consideration and approval. This is despite what has not been revealed as a material change in the project schedule or potentially up to a year delay. Bizarrely and curiously, the preamble to the agenda does not reference this change of date and claims that there are no financial implications for the Climate Emergency Action Plan. How can a significant delay in delivery of a major project intended to deliver return on investment not have financial implications for the overall plan? Even more worrisome, the continued delay of the project was not cited as a challenge in the background to the report. It therefore feels disingenuous and appears to be a veiled attempt to avoid scrutiny and accountability. Voting for this report in its entirety would therefore be a tacit approval for the continuing mismanagement of Barkham Solar Farm project delivery process. I will therefore not be voting for the approval of this report tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next person I have is Adrian Betteridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, where to begin? I welcome the enthusiasm from our Conservative colleagues for net zero. It's quite difficult to keep up with their party's ambition on this at the moment. 1 minute they're in favour, next minute everything's out to 2050 and unachievable. So it's great that everyone who's spoken so far tonight is in favour of achieving net zero at the earliest stage. I've followed this climate emergency plan for some time, initially as a campaigner to decarbonise transport, then as a member of the ONS committee, and now as a member of the executive. I will say, to imply that we inherited a good plan which would deliver 2030 net zero is not quite correct. I think that's all I can say. I had other words written down here. The plan had a number of aspirations in it. It had very few real targets, and there was very little in the way of linkage between the aspirations and the actions. We sorted that out. In some respects, that took the achievement backwards slightly, but we now have a good plan. And I will highlight the area of transport to bring that to life. Transport is one third of the carbon emissions in our borough, and it's the sector which is proving hardest to reduce across the country as well as here. The primary strategy is to shift fossil fuel car use to other less emitting forms of traffic, EVs, public transport, walking, cycling and wheeling. And this year's update makes a further significant step forward in the methodology to deliver this. Previous plans, since the first iteration, lacked any linkage between the carbon reduction target and the way in which people actually travel in terms of miles travelled. It was very difficult to relate carbon targets to any actions to achieve the target we wanted to achieve. This update establishes that link and will allow us now to set appropriate actions to achieve targets as we implement our local transport plan. The first iteration of this has given us new provisional modal share targets, and I hope that through our action planning this year we can improve upon these. This may all sound somewhat arcane, but an action plan is nothing if we cannot link actions and outcomes. And I think we should be thanking officers in the Climate Emergency Highways teams for this significant step forward in this year's plan.
Thank you very much. Next on my list is Stephen Newton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just thinking back on what was just said a few moments ago, I seem to recall my colleague or former colleague Sarah Kerr, her surprise when she realised that the Barkham Solar Farm project, which she inherited, there was no plan actually to connect it to anything at the time when she inherited it. And that may be a reason for some of these delays, but there we are. Anyway, there are many global challenges that we as a council can do little to influence, but climate change is not one of them. Since this council declared a climate emergency, we have embarked upon a significant journey to transform our borough. This involves residents, businesses, and many other critical partners. Sadly, there are still naysayers, people with their own or corporate agendas that put short-term ambitions ahead of the wider societal good. But most people can see that the signs are all around us with weather changes, temperature changes, etc., all of which presents enormous challenges to our farmers and to other businesses. Who would have thought a few years ago that Jeremy Clarkson would provide a TV programme that puts this subject under a huge spotlight on the popular show Clarkson's Farm? Other programmes are, of course, available. This remains a huge challenge, but here in Wokingham we are taking it seriously. Despite the cuts in central funding from governments, this continues to be a priority. Successive generations have sought to leave a better world for our children and our children's children. This plan and the action taken already are fundamental to achieving this. I would like to thank Catherine and the officers and all of the partners involved in this for their energy and their enthusiasm, for what they've already achieved and what they will deliver in the future to make Wokingham and our planet a better place to live now and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Caroline Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. As a member of the Climate Emergency Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I'm happy to support the Climate Emergency Action Plan 6 Progress Report at this full Council. I have worked alongside many councillors on this committee. We have heard many officers being extremely thorough at their presenting information on the progress of the action plan and also answering the many questions raised, resulting in adjustments when recommended. People often say we're in all this together, but in reality, some only support policies that benefit them or help their appeal, avoiding the tough decisions required for real change. The Liberal Democrats are prepared to make those tough decisions. Maybe not so much for us, but in my case, my young grandchildren grew up in a world not in conflict that has been brought about by our inaction. We have recently seen short-sighted and dangerous breakdown of UK's political consensus to drive towards net zero of 2050. The Conservative Party was in power for 14 years and had time to set us on the right track and even brought in legislation that made target legally binding. Why do they want to throw in the towel 25 years earlier than the target date and say it cannot be done? Of course it won't be done without the will to do so. I will let their record stand on this matter for everyone to make up their own mind about their commitment to a safe and resilient future. The Liberal Democrats are proud to make the positive case for climate and nature action, recently passing a motion at conference detailing policies to deliver a rapid and just transition. Acting now is cheaper than waiting for the future, with escalating impacts of climate change costing people's health, security and insurance premiums. Actions for Wokingham will affect everyone, and we have done many things to help the borough to reach our goal of net zero by 2030. When reading this report, I'm impressed that we have achieved so much so far and are still working on this. For me, the behavioural change is the most difficult to achieve, and I have listened to many lectures on this, including one from Professor Ed Hawkins, the originator of the climate stripes at the University of Reading, discussing the seriousness of the climate emergencies, and this has me worried on the effects this will have on all our lives. But one lecture I listened to on behavioural change was given by a psychiatrist who ended his talk with, "If we want to be the change, we must be the change. So be the change tonight and support this report." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pauline Jorgensen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got a couple of things to say. I wasn't intending to speak on this. Firstly, I'd like to remind Caroline that in the 14 years the Conservatives were in government, 5 of them were in coalition with the Liberal Democrats. You may be criticising what the Conservatives did in government, but during the 2010-2015 Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition government, the Secretary of State for Climate Change was Chris Huhne, followed by Ed Davey. So if you're criticising the government during those 15 years, you're criticising yourselves. Secondly, Adrian, I want to remind you that you're trying to blame our plans. You set the targets that you're just criticising and changing, and you've had 3 years after you accepted those plans to amend them. You've done nothing. And now you're saying that you're only adjusting the targets now and that now they will be achieved. Our issue is not with what is being done on climate change. Our issue is the fact you're not delivering.
Thank you. That's all the speakers. Go to the seconder now. Catherine, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. Madam Mayor, councillors, council officers, residents. Yes, it's true. Back in the 90s, my brother, a member of the Green Party, then as now, used to tell us that for environmental concerns, our best bet was to vote Conservative. And yes, the Conservatives have gone on. As you say, in coalition with the Liberal Democrats, they did achieve quite a lot. As recently as 2019, the Conservative government committed to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050, making the UK the first major economy in the world to bind their government to eliminate emissions by mid-century. Now they seem to be giving up, and they seem to be encouraging us to give up too. Most of the speakers against the plan seem to actually be commenting on past progress rather than the actual new plan. We're actually voting on a plan from now on to 2030. And, you know, if we don't have a target, we're never going to meet it. We've got to try. I've been privileged to chair the Council's Climate Emergency Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and we're still resolved to hit that target. We know it's a stretch target, but we still think it's worth aiming high. Catherine has already mentioned some of the Council's achievements. We've also increased our score on an internationally accepted process that reviews councils on actions taken towards net zero. And targets in the plan are now incorporated into the Council's procurement processes and permeate every aspect of the Council's work. This year, the presentation and format of the Climate Emergency Action Plan document itself has been improved to make it clearer for all stakeholders, including residents. An immense amount of work is put into creating this document and making it easy for everyone to understand, and I thank the officers for all their hard work on it, as well as on the policies themselves. I also thank my fellow members of the committee from all three parties for diligently reviewing the plan. This very morning, I was notified that the Council had submitted their planning application for the solar canopies at Mere Oak Park and Ride. This will start generating electricity as soon as 2027 and will generate a considerable net income for the Council, which will help fund important council services and projects over the coming years. I'm very excited that this project in my very own ward will be contributing both to saving carbon emissions and the new green economy. This is just one project contributing to the Council's Emergency Action Plan, which I recommend you all vote for.
Thank you very much. Catherine, you have the right to reply.
Thank you. Firstly, I very much welcome our Conservative colleagues' support for ambitious climate action and doing as much as we can as quickly as possible. Dave, you mentioned net zero by 2030. What's the targets? What's the plan? In, I believe it was the April Climate Emergency Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I think we all heard from Professor Chris Merchant on the urgency of action and discussed whether or not to revise the targets. My opinion, as was not challenged by any of the members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, was that actually revisiting targets and going round and round on something that we cannot control is not a good use of our council time and resources, and I would rather that officers are getting on with the job and delivering actions. I know both Councillor Harper and Councillor Ingham-Mowena very welcome your, I think you make some valid points on the Barkham Solar Farm and the delays. I look forward to responding in more detail to Peter's question later on the agenda. This council cannot achieve any target, whether net zero by 2030 or any date in the future, in isolation. We are dependent on how society as a whole moves, and perhaps the the one entity, if we were to pick one, though there is no one, would be perhaps our national government. Pauline, you mentioned the Lib Dem record and climate change. I think that is something that in Coalition I'm very proud of. I think Ed Davey brought in Contracts for Difference, which de-linked GDP growth from emissions. And there were numerous other programmes brought in during that time that we hoped to would continue. However, perhaps we are disappointed by the direction that the National Conservative Party has taken since. I think our respected former local MP and former Prime Minister Baroness Theresa May showed genuine statesmanship by passing the world's first legally binding net zero target into law in her final few weeks in office. However, now we see her party running scared of Reform UK and in the process betraying current and future generations. But perhaps we should not be surprised. Remember David Cameron's infamous call, somewhat sanitised, to cut the green stuff in 2013, a betrayal that left thousands more people living in cold, drafty, poorly insulated homes across the country with eye-watering energy bills, and residents here in Wokingham and across the country are still paying the price. By contrast, Liberal Democrats are clear. Investing in climate action is investing in our community's future prosperity, security and well-being. We will continue to lead, to hold the government to account and to ensure that Wokingham plays its part in building a fairer, greener future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the vote. Have a show of hands, all those voting for the report, please. Okay, and those against? Are there any abstentions? That is carried. Thank you very much. We can move on to item 50, which is the Councillor question time. Councillors are reminded that supplementary questions must either relate to the original question or the responses given to that question and must be no longer than 1 minute. Executive councillors are reminded that responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and these will be timed. We have 12 councillor questions. Councillor Glover, will you please put your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for the Executive Member for Children's Services. Many parents in the southwest corner of the borough depend on being able to pay for spare seats on a school bus to get their children to secondary schools elsewhere in the borough. In previous years, the process for applying was fraught, and the likelihood of not securing a place seemed high. I was very pleased to see that the process has been improved this year, with qualifying criteria agreed with the parents themselves, replacing first come, first served as the basis of allocating places. This year is the first year since 2023 that parents have not come en masse to Shinfield Parish Council to complain about the process and the allocation. I've heard that improvements have also been made to the bus services, and I wonder what proportion of children who applied have been able to secure a fair-paying place on the school buses this year.
Once I can say a genuine thank you for the question. The Council has indeed made several improvements to the process for applying for spare seats for the 2025-26 academic year, including the development of a formal criteria-based prioritisation policy, as well as reformulation of routes and expansion of the latent capacity. This has resulted in a situation whereby all families who applied for a fair payer seat by the application deadline have been able to be offered a seat on home to school transport, and in total 410 pupils have been allocated a seat on such transport. A small number of families have submitted applications subsequent to the deadline and the seat allocation. However, due to movements within the system, all Wokingham Borough Council pupils whose families submitted an application before the start of term will still receive an offer of a seat on an available route.
Thank you. Catherine, do you have a supplementary?
No, I don't. I'm just very pleased to hear that everybody's got a seat on the bus this year. Thank you, Prue.
Thank you very much. The next question is Rebecca Muggets to ask a question of the Executive Council for Active Travel, Transport and Highways.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question's for Adrian. On the South Woking Distributor Road webpage on the council website, I'd like to say it was on the website, but funnily enough, when you ask a question, it disappears. It states that East Hampstead Road will be closed between Star Lane and Heathlands Road with a diversion in place from early winter 2025 into 2026. Please can the lead member for Highways provide further details about this?
Thank you, Rebecca. These were the original provisional dates for this part of the project, and I'm sorry they hadn't previously been updated. In line with my response at July's meeting to your colleague Councillor Turtle's question on the same topic, East Hampstead Road is expected to be closed from April 2026, thus avoiding simultaneous closure with the Finch Hampstead Road. The exact dates are not yet finalised between the contractor and the council, and there are dependencies on some other parties. Our current expectation is that the work will commence in April 2026 and exact dates will be communicated when available. As you say, the website has now been updated to reflect this position, and thank you for alerting the team to this issue.
Rebecca, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. And thank you, Adrian. That's provided some reassurance because you in the south of the borough, like me and lots of other residents, are kind of battling through various road closures and diversions at the moment to get into Woking town. So I'm already aware that businesses in Woking are seeing the effect of these road closures with a reduction in footfall. And will this council consider initiatives such as free Christmas weekend parking to support businesses at this difficult time to try and proactively support them in the coming times with this reduced footfall?
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, I'm very aware of congestion. In fact, on the first day of the new roadworks, I went out on my bike and cycled every route in and out of Wokingham. Suffice to say, people were happy to stop and talk to me along the road because they weren't going anywhere fast. So I do understand. I'm pleased to say things are much better now, albeit obviously with one of the two main roads into Wokingham from the south closed. We are suffering from congestion. Still, in terms of the impact on the town centre, the people I've spoken to haven't commented on a big difference. Congestion is still bad in the morning and evening peaks, but during the day is generally okay. But we will obviously continue to talk with businesses and residents on this subject. We are in the process of deciding our plans for any concessionary arrangements we make for Christmas, and we'll update on those in due course.
Thank you very much. The next question is Shona Turtle to ask questions of the Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for the Deputy Leader. Residents living in the Crowthorne Triangle received a letter requesting feedback on proposed changes to move their property from Finch Hampstead Parish into Wokingham Without Parish. However, the letter did not provide information about what the change would mean to residents. The move means an increase in their parish precept, for some 150%, and I must apologise, I made a typo and wrote 250% in my initial submission, but it's 150%. Many of these residents are pensioners on fixed incomes and face raising costs with no opportunities to supplement their income. The correspondence I have received include disappointing, uninformative. It should be transparent. No mention of an increase in parish taxes in the consultation letter is deceptive. A poorly worded document, which I view as an attempt to hide the issue in plain sight. The survey is difficult to access. I gave up. The survey is too difficult and clunky. Isn't there another way to respond? It's unclear if the survey is to be filled out by each electorate or by one per household. It's too difficult to find the relevant information in the CGR document. Would you send a follow-up letter explaining the reasons behind the vote, the financial implications for the residents, and clearly stating alternative options on how they can provide feedback before the consultation deadline?
Thank you for your question. The Community Governance Review covers all parishes in the borough. although in many areas there are no proposed changes. All interested residents are invited to respond to the consultation through the Council's Engage website. The closing date is the 13th of November. However, for those households directly impacted by proposed changes, we wrote specifically outlining the reason and context for the proposal. There are 111 households in the Crowthorne Triangle that received a letter from the Council in August. The letter set out the draft proposal to move their household from Finchampstead Parish to Woking Without Parish. This proposal arose following Finchampstead Parish Council's initial suggestion that the triangle of properties to the east of the railway line be moved to Woking Without Parish Council. Their proposal was informed by a consultation that Finchampstead Parish Council undertook with affected residents earlier in 2025. As the principal local authority in the area, the Borough Council is carrying out the Community Governance Review in accordance with the Government's guidance on community governance reviews. The guidance sets out the process and criteria for conducting such reviews. You refer to...
Sorry, could I just interrupt? Shona, you've got your... I think which is why we're getting the feed.
Sorry. The guidance sets out the process and criteria for conducting such reviews, and you referred to Woking Without Parish Council having a higher council tax precept than Finchampstead Parish Council. While this is true, council tax levels are not one of the criteria on which decisions about community governance arrangements can be made. I have reviewed the letter. I'm sorry this group of residents are having difficulty with it for some reason, and we will arrange for a follow-up communication with them.
Thank you. Shona, do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. Thank you, Prue. They'll be pleased to have a little bit more explanation. It wasn't so much that it was happening, it was the fact that the kind of impact that it would have on them that they're objecting to, and the difficulty, obviously, in responding. Some residents living on the Devil's Highway were sent a consultation letter advising the potential boundary change from Finchampstead into the parish of Woking and Without. They're very confused because they are already paying their parish precept to Woking and Without Council. Have they been sent the letter in error, or have they been charged a much higher precept charge for the 9 years that they've been occupants?
I'm afraid I don't know why people who are already part of Woking Without Parish may have been sent a letter. I suspect that this is a complex process and there might be one or two in error, but I will look into it for you and find out.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question then, which is Rochelle Shepherd-Dubay to ask the question of the Executive Councillor for Housing, Partnerships and the Local Plan.
Okay. Just a second. My question is for the Leader of the Council. Would he tell us what he sees as the consequences of not adopting the new local plan currently with the inspectors for examination? In your view, also, what would you say would you say it's irresponsible for councillors to seek to sabotage the progress of the new local plan at the inspector's examination?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, that's not the question that's written down. Surely it should be the question that's written. There seems to be an extended question. Can we have just have the question that's been submitted?
First question. Would he tell us what he sees as the consequences of not adopting the new local plan currently with the inspectors for examination?
Right, okay, thank you. And thank you for the question, Rochelle. I guess there seems to be a bit of...
Rochelle, you've got your...
Yeah, thank you. The answer in a nutshell is prolonged exposure to speculative development over which we would have little, if any, control. If the new local plan were rejected, we would immediately have to accommodate the higher numbers, more than 1,300 new dwellings a year, rather than the 748 per year that the submitted plan accommodates. The whole borough would be exposed during the period of formulating a replacement plan, about 3 years at least, to development anarchy, with virtually no ability to manage where development occurred. But before I allow us to lapse into undue alarm and despondency, let me say that the local plan now at examination has been through the most rigorous process of professional assessment and was developed by planning officers working under two different political administrations. The draft plan, which identified almost all the sites in the final version, including Hall Farm, was approved by the previous Conservative administration, and the submitted version, which adds important new policies on affordable housing and energy-efficient new homes, Catherine referred to that earlier in the meeting, was completed by the current Lib Dem administration. The submitted plan complies with national policy, and I see no reason to believe that it will be rejected by the inspectors at examination.
Thank you. Rochelle, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, now I'll have a supplementary. In view of what you just said, would you view it as irresponsible for councillors to seek to sabotage the progress of the new local plan at the inspector's examination?
Well, I think in the light of what I've just said, I think it would be extremely unwise, and I think one needs to be aware of those consequences that could happen to this borough and the whole borough. So I would have said it was unwise in the extreme to try and derail the local plan as it makes its progress through examination.
Thank you very much. The next question I have is from Chris Cook to ask a question of the Leader of the Council. Chris.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the Leader of the Council to please share an update on efforts to persuade the Government to reconsider its plans to redirect nearly £50 million of funding that would otherwise have come to Wokingham over the next 3 years.
Thank you for your question, Chris. I can assure you that very considerable efforts have been made by this Council to raise our concerns over the potential impact of the Fairer Funding Review. And given the magnitude of this issue, as Leader of the Council, I've been personally very much involved in this process of trying to get our message across. Our endeavours to date have included writing to the 56 Tier 1 local authorities we believe will also lose out. And Tier 1, just in case anyone is unaware, are authorities that provide adults and children's social care as part of their responsibilities. And we're seeking to get the support of those 51 other Tier 1 local authorities to influence their respective formal consultation responses and to seek their support for our approach to government, which is to try and get the government to agree to a 4% floor, that is a 4% minimum increase in core spending power per annum. We've also been engaging with our MPs, who have both sought to raise the issue at government level and have been lobbying on our behalf. And we've I've actually sent letters to the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, to give it its full title, including the new Secretary of State, Steve Reed. Meetings have also been held with the LGA, which I now believe is shifting its position to support no real terms cuts in core spending. And we believe that would need to be in the region of 4%. We have submitted our comprehensive formal response to the government, clearly setting out the defects in the proposed approach and reinforcing the need for a 4% floor. This was all made public and agreed by Imogen through an individual executive member decision. And in addition to this, we have commissioned a specialist organisation to build upon this work.
Stephen, could you start to
I will,
please?
and to provide a unified position around a 4% floor, which is our aim. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Chris, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Is there a role for our voluntary and charitable sector partners in this campaign?
Thank you, Chris. I think there's a role for all sorts of partners, not just the voluntary and charitable sector partners. I would welcome support from wherever I can get it. I'd welcome support from our partners in the voluntary and charitable sector, in business, all of those bodies with which we interact and will be affected by a significant reduction in our funding. I would welcome the support of the other parties on the council also. But on your specific point about the voluntary and charitable sector, Chris, I recently spoke with the voluntary sector action group to explain to them what the government's proposals would mean if they were not altered. And I'm delighted to say that the organisations present volunteered to write in to support our position. So I think there is out there significant support for our trying to persuade the government to moderate the approach they're adopting and avoid councils, any council, getting into extreme difficulties. My belief is that if the government persist with an unaltered set of proposals, there will be significant consequences for many councils. We're in a relatively fortunate position in Wokingham in having managed our finances very sensibly and well over many years. And I think we are in a fortunate position, but even here, there would be unpalatable decisions, will be unpalatable decisions we have to make if the government does not moderate its way forward. And other councils could face much worse than that. It's entirely possible that the government could face a demand for additional money to support councils that are about to fall over, and that would outweigh any benefit they're getting from a saving by not increasing the overall pot for local government.
Thank you. Move on to the next question, which is from Dave Edmonds, asking a question of the Leader of the Council. Oh, Pauline.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I know it's highly irregular, but I just wanted to say that we're doing everything we can to support you, Stephen, to make sure that the government funding formula is changed and that we get our fair share of any funding.
Thank you. I think that's probably a welcome interruption. Dave, if you'd like to carry on.
Thank you. Given the expansion in housing and population in the south of the borough, has the Leader of the Council contacted AWE to request they review and potentially enlarge the current size of the detailed emergency planning zone so that it remains fit for purpose?
Thank you for your question, Dave. The detailed emergency planning zone, just in case anyone's unaware of what this is the area for which an emergency plan needs to be in place. This plan is called the Atomic Weapons Establishment Off-Site Emergency Plan and covers the Older Marston and Burfield AWE sites. Your question assumes that I think it's probably an assumption many people make, that the AWE is responsible for the extent of the DEPZ, but that is actually not the case. West Berkshire Council, not AWE, is the responsible authority required to determine the footprint of the detailed emergency planning zone. A review must occur within 2 months of West Berkshire Council receiving an updated hazard evaluation and consequent assessment from AWE. Unless there is a change in operations on the AWE sites, or West Berkshire Council considers there is a change in the local area which necessitates an earlier redetermination, the review proceeds on a 3-year cycle. And when determining and reviewing the DEPZ, West Berks must, along with other considerations, ensure that the need to avoid, where practicable, the bisection of local communities is taken into account. But they also must ensure that any plan must not be so large in its footprint or so complex that it cannot be implemented effectively and rapidly and in a way that's proportionate to the consequences of the radiation emergency identified in the AWE hazard evaluation. I hope that helps.
Dave, do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. With this Liberal Democrat-led council clearly committed to concreting over the south of the borough and dramatically increasing the population there, it is deeply worrying that they appear to have given little thought to the safety of residents they could be endangering, especially those living near the atomic weapons establishment. The number of people now packed into the detailed emergency planning zone has surged as a direct result of this reckless development spree. To ignore the need of a thorough review and possible expansion of the DEPZ boundaries would be nothing short of a dereliction of duty. Our residents deserve better than to be treated as an afterthought in the council's rush to build it at any cost. The council must urgently confirm that it is working with the relevant agencies and, as you've stated, West Berks Council, to review and, where necessary, enlarge the DEPZ to reflect this significant population growth. This is not just a planning issue, it is a public safety crisis waiting to happen. So I ask the Leader of the Council to reassure us that, as a matter of public safety, he will confirm that the local plan will not be finalised until the DEPZ boundaries have been formally reviewed and updated.
Thank you, Dave, for your characteristically respectful and helpful and constructive question. May I just remind you of what I said in answer to an earlier question? The local plan was the work of two successive administrations. The draft plan, which included nearly all of the major development sites, including Hall Farm, was inserted in the draft plan by your administration, by your colleagues, and voted on by them. So I'm afraid your attempt to make this appear as though it's a Liberal Democrat dastardly plan to concrete over the south is very misplaced. Can I also just remind you that I've just explained what the process is by which West Berks will review this. What I didn't have time to say is that the next review will be due in 2026.
Thank you very much. We have 5 more questions, and what I'd like to do is to get your agreement to extend the time. So that's a proposal under Council Procedure Rule 5.14.8, so allowing all councillors' questions to be heard. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Rob. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Okay, so we can carry on without that 30-minute limit. So we then carry on with the next question, which is Alison Swaddle to ask a question of the Exec Councillor for Economic Development, Sport and Leisure.
Residents in my ward are keen to know what plans the Borough Council has to invest in the regeneration of Woodley Town Centre.
You probably realise, Alison, this question would have been answered by Mark Ashwell, not by me. So, yet again, I'm afraid you have to put up with the B team. The answer, in essence, is that the Borough Council approved a town centre strategies document, which includes a focus on Woodley Town Centre. And as a result of this, investment has been made with the appointment of a dedicated town centres officer, Warwick Heskins, who I had the pleasure of meeting the other day. And I'm pleased to say he's already made progress in developing a relationship with Brian Fennelly, the Woodley Town Centre manager, who I know to be an excellent person. So that really important step about trying to liaise between the town centre officer and the Woodley Town Centre manager is well underway. Our officers and the executive member for Economic Development, Sport, Leisure and the Arts are attending the Town Centre Management Initiative meeting on the 15th of October to launch our action plan for Woodley Town Centre. And whilst we have no immediate asset delivery regeneration plans proposed, we will continue to look out for initiatives and for grants to support the action plan. I hope that helps, Alison.
Alison, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, indeed, I asked the same question back in July 22 OSM when the leader of the new Lib Dem administration attended discussing the challenges and opportunities facing the borough. And to quote from the minutes, he said, Clive Jones said that officers had commenced working on options for further regeneration projects commencing with Woodley. So whilst I'm very pleased to hear what you said, I was really disappointed when Mark Ashwell said in this chamber, in response to a question from Councillor Greg Bello, that WBC wasn't eligible to borrow from the Public Loan Board when Woodley Precinct premises were up for auction because there was no regeneration plans for the town centre. I'm really pleased to hear what you said, but what shocks me, and I suspect my other councillors in Woodley are borough councillors, is that we haven't been involved. Why didn't your officers come to us before going to the town centre management initiative? We would really like to have an input and be engaged with this. So please, can this be arranged?
I will do my best to ensure you are involved, Alison, because obviously I'm very keen, wherever possible, we can include ward members in anything that's going to affect their wards.
Thank you. The next question is from Charles Margetts to the Executive Councillor for Housing Partnerships and the Local Plan. Charles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council recently announced the sale of land at Toutley East for housing development. The press release stated the purchaser will be expected to submit a planning application for 160 houses in spring 2026. The Council had developed an earlier scheme for 130 houses and a care home on this land, which gained planning approval in 2023. Can you tell me the total sum of money which was spent on the design of the earlier scheme, and as a separate figure, how much money the Council expects to spend on preparing the site for sale next year?
Thank you for your question, Charles. To date, the Council has spent approximately £1 million on design, planning and site feasibility and survey fees on the Toutley East site. This cost includes all the fees required to secure the outline planning consent for the development of the site. This outline planning consent has increased the land value of the site over tenfold, securing a significant return on investment for the Council. The costs of preparing the site sale, including legal and professional fees, are estimated to be 4% of the site value.
Charles, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you. Thank you for the response. I actually support this as a scheme. I think the Council should use its assets to generate revenue if they're not actually in use. I would be grateful for a breakdown of this £1 million figure. I know the planning application cost for a housing development of this size would be around £50,000. So I don't really understand how we've got £950,000, best part of £1 million, which has gone of taxpayers' money here. I know you're not going to know the answer to that now, which I entirely respect, but if you could get officers to respond to me with a breakdown and analysis of where this money has gone, I'd be very grateful.
Thank you for that supplementary, Charles. I will do my best to get you that detail that you require and welcome your support for the scheme. It isn't just, of course, a question of disposing of an asset in a way that will produce some much-needed financial help for the Council, but it's also a matter of delivering a significant number of new affordable homes on that site. We're going to have more than policy compliant number, it looks like. So that's an extremely good outcome, I think, from the Council's point of view. Because as we all know, affordable homes with a capital A and a capital H, I'm talking about tenures that are sub-market, is much needed in the borough.
Thank you very much. Next question is from Andrew Gray to ask a question of the Executive Councillor for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Residents of Shinfield's Heritage Park development are frustrated that the Council has still not adopted the roads. There's been no clear communication on timetable provided, leaving residents in limbo. Can the Executive Member explain why this process has been so delayed and confirm exactly when these roads will finally be adopted?
Andrew, thank you for the question. Together with officers, I share your frustration over this issue. Preparing roads for adoption is the responsibility of the developer, but it's important that liabilities are not transferred to the taxpayer in this process. In this case, I'm told that adoption has been delayed by the non-adoption of the sewer system by Thames Water, which is an issue between the developer and the water company. It's still unresolved, but I understand is closer to being so. Thereafter, WBC will inspect the highway and associated assets, and any unacceptable items will be identified. If the developer addresses these issues promptly, the adoption will follow. But if this takes a long time, we would need to re-inspect to check there are no new defects, as the developer remains responsible for maintenance until adoption is complete. We work collaboratively with developers to seek to expedite this process, and inspections have been undertaken across many roads in Shinfield with this in mind, but due to the dependence on the developer and Thames Water, it is not possible at this stage to forecast when adoption will happen. The process is explained on the Council website, and we intend to supplement this with further resources, including contact details for the responsible developer, in each case to whom residents should raise their concerns in the first instance. I expect you already have this for this estate, but if not, the team would be happy to put you in contact. Unfortunately, delays to the adoption of highways are not unique to Shinfield. We have few powers to require more from the developers, either in terms of whether estates will be adopted or when. On Monday of this week, I supported a motion at the Liberal Democrat Conference, which resolved to strengthen local authority powers on this issue, including sanctions for developers who fail to complete roads and other infrastructure. I know both of our local MPs have also campaigned on wider related issues, and I would encourage you to raise this aspect of the general issue with your local MP.
Thank you, Andrew. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you very much for that response. You mentioned, well, you gave details as to what the issue is. Do we have an indication that the developers are engaging positively with actually making these changes? And what other pressure can the council put on to make sure these changes are made as quickly as possible?
Officers are working with the developer, and as I say, are proactively trying to accelerate the adoption process, but we can't start formal adoption until the issues with Thames Water are resolved. Thames Water have many challenges, this just being one of them. I think any pressure the residents and indeed local councillors can apply directly to the developer can only help alongside the efforts the officers are making.
Thank you very much. We have two more questions. Next one is Greg Bellow to ask a question of the Executive Councillor for Active Travel, Transport and Highways.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last year, Wokingham Borough Council held a consultation into the future of the borough's three major town centres, including Woodley. The report said Woodley is well served by buses to Wokingham. The closest the Lion 4 gets to Woodley is when it stops near the George Pub in Early. The other bus meanders between Reading, Twyford and Wokingham. What is Wokingham Borough Council doing to improve bus services in Woodley?
Greg, thank you for your question. I'm pleased to confirm that Woodley Town benefits from one of the most frequent and late-running bus services in the borough, albeit with the emphasis on travel to Reading, which is the primary requirement in the area. There are 4 buses per hour between the Chequers stops in central Woodley and Reading Town Centre, 3 buses per hour between Woodley Town and the wider residential areas of Woodley, but only approximately 1 bus per hour from Woodley Town to Wokingham, stopping on the Waltham Road for Twyford Station. Many areas of the borough would be delighted with such a service. To support areas of Woodley that are not covered by commercial services, the Council provides £364,000 annually to maintain the 19 A, B and C services. The commercial 13 and 14 services offer morning journeys starting from 5:50 a.m. and running through to midnight, Monday to Saturday. On Sundays, an hourly service operates in both directions between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. And thanks to recent grant funding, we've extended Friday and Saturday evening services to run until 2 a.m. Whilst Woodley already enjoys a strong level of service in general, we remain committed to improving public transport for our residents. We're working in partnership with Reading Borough Council to try and further improve journeys between Woodley and Reading, but we are also undertaking a borough-wide review of services and have already engaged with many community groups to understand local needs. We're developing options for further improvements, which may depend on securing appropriate funding. Discussions with potential partners, including town and parish councils, will begin shortly, and there will be a public consultation starting next year.
Thank you. Greg, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Adrian, for the information and answer. Would you give a commitment to provide some assistance to the people of Woodley as to how they would travel by bus to the Winnersh Park and Ride as part of the improvement plans?
That's, I think, potentially a very valuable route. I will discuss it with our bus services team, and if it's not already evident in the work we've done this year, I'll ask if that can be looked at as a part of the work they're doing.
Thank you. That comes to the final question then from Nagi Nagella to ask a question of the Executive Councillor for Economic Development, Sport and Leisure, which I think it looks very much like Stephen. Sorry, I've got...
I think one? I was, sorry, Madam Mayor, I think there's another question from Peter as well at the end.
Okay. Sorry, can I'll get you to sit down and we'll start again.
No, Nagi's correct. Nagi and then Peter.
And then Peter. Okay. Right. Deep breath. Nagi, if you'd like to carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier this year, the Lib Dem administration U-turned on their proposals to introduce car parking charges at Cantley Park, but refused to rule them out in future. At what point in the budget setting process will the administration be able to confirm that the plans to introduce car parking charges at Cantley are not in this year's budget? Thank you.
Thank you, Nagi. In Mark's absence, I'm going to answer. I think we decided I'll be on a roll at this stage of the evening, so may as well continue. The MTF process relies on the examination in public of options to produce a balanced budget. Characterising this process as U-turns is unhelpful and could be interpreted that you'd like the executive to have made decisions ahead of the examination, which I assume is not what you're seeking. The Council is currently working through the usual process to develop the 25-26 MTFP, which will set the budget for next year. The draft will, as normal, be scrutinised by the Corporate and Community Overview and Scrutiny Committee in November, with the final MTFP being considered at full council in February 2026. It's not possible at this stage to confirm next year's budget proposals. However, I will say that the introduction of parking charges at Cantley Park is not currently included in the draft MTFP.
Do you have a supplementary, Nagi?
I do. Thank you for your response, Adrian. That's really helpful and positive to hear. In last full council meeting, there was a conversation around Bucks and Barks FA taking over Cantley, and lately it's been all quiet. So is there an update on that one? Thank you.
Thank you, Nagi. I'm told that the Barks and Bucks FA anticipated arrangement is currently with the Council's legal department.
Thank you. And the final question, that was my deliberate error for the evening, is Peter, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for extending the time so I could get my question in. Can the executive member provide an update on the expected date for the Barkham Solar Farm to be generating electricity and revenue for the Council, and any changes to the cost of delivery of the project from the original business case?
Thank you for your question, Peter, and the chance to answer it not in the 3 minutes allocated to sum up the previous debate. So the Barkham Solar Farm is expected to be generating electricity and much needed revenue for the Council from spring 2027. This has been delayed, and this is due to a delay in receiving information from Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks, or SSEN, which was required to finalise the design. This has been further exacerbated by the fact that due to technical constraints on the network, SSEN are not able to connect a solar farm to the grid during the winter months between October and April. The updated business case, including latest estimates on delivery costs and income, will be presented to the Climate Emergency Overview and Scrutiny Committee in November in advance of the signing of the construction contract, which we hope to sign in early 2026. And I look forward to your scrutiny and comments at that meeting. The updated programme for the solar farm has been published on our website since early August. Regular meetings of the cross-party project board provide updates to members from all parties, and I understand that officers met with you last week to go through any questions that you had. This delay to both generating the electricity and revenue for the council is regrettable, but I assure you that myself and officers are working hard to ensure that the time is well used in making the project even more robust. Thank you.
Peter, do you have a supplementary?
I do. The reason I've asked the question in open council is not that I don't know the answer. Obviously, it's so that we can air it in front of our fellow councillors and the public as well, so they can get a clear understanding of what's going on. Can you understand Councillor Ingamwena's concern over dates when you've stated a date here, we've had previous dates, they've slipped and slipped and slipped. How confident are you that spring 2027 is the date when it'll be generating electricity and we're making an income, which is essential for this council, £1 million a year profit in order to feed and provide services for this council. It's essential we get that money in.
I do understand it, and I know Councillor Ian Gumawena and I have exchanged similar observations when we were both on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee regarding some of the information shared back in, I think it was in February. I think we can have good confidence in the date. We've seen a step change in engagement from SSEN in providing information over the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 months. Because of the unfortunate gap between October and April, that does obviously delay things, but it also means that we then we're not kind of constantly slipping. It kind of introduces a sort of drop-dead date that means we have a longer kind of contingency period to work towards. I will note that due to technical constraints, I'm not a solar electrician, but I understand that initial connection will happen first, and it can be a period of a number of months before kind of full export and therefore income is coming in. So, you know, I can't say that spring will be exactly when we are generating all the income, but we certainly expect to be connected and begin that process in spring 2027.
Thank you very much. We move on then to item 51, which is the minutes of committee meetings and ward matters. Can those councillors who wish to speak on the item please raise your hands and leave them raised so that we can make a note of those who wish to speak. Thank you. I know Beth Rowland wants to speak as well, but she's had to go out. Relevant, yeah. So, I think I'll start straight down. I'm just going to read out who I've got, so just make sure we haven't missed anybody. Andrew Gray, Naga Nagella, Charles Margetts, Pauline Jorgensen, Joseph Barley, Shona Turtle, Vishal, Alex Feeney and Moses, and Martine, Andrea, Bassett, Chris Cook, Beth Rowland. Is there... Chetna. So, thank you.
And David.
And how could we miss you, Dave? I mean, you know...
I know I'm shy and retiring.
Did we get Shona?
Yes, we did get Shona. So, I thought I'd read out Dave Edmonds. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay, could we please start with Andrew Gray?
Thank you. My question is for the Executive Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record as I've raised this multiple times in the chamber, but there was yet another crash at the Whitley Wood Lane junction with the B3270 this week, involving at least 2 vehicles with significant damage. I've personally witnessed at least 6 accidents at this junction in the last 18 months, which is significantly more than the council reported in response to a petition in May, which reported 4 collisions over the last 5 years. Is the council confident that the data it's collecting on the collisions at this junction is accurate, and therefore is it confident that its prioritisation is accurate in terms of safety?
Thank you, Andrew. I guess there are 2 answers to this. We're very confident that the data we are reviewing is accurate in terms of the data we are presented with, which is generally only for collisions where there is an injury involved and the police attend. I'm very aware that there's a whole lot of other stuff going on out there, which following a conventional risk management process you would really want to access to understand the near misses, the minor collisions, such that you can start to eliminate root causes and prevent the more serious incidents happening. There is currently no way of doing that, and it's a nationwide problem, exacerbated by the fact that, thankfully, vehicles have generally become safer with all sorts of airbags, crumple zones and so on, resulting in many fewer injuries for each collision, which is a very good thing, but it has changed the dynamic in terms of how collision reporting and investigation is carried out. As I say, it's a nationwide problem. There are some proposals from the DFT as to how to resolve this, which potentially include using insurance company data, which is much more comprehensive. There is little progress on that at the moment and little hope that that's going to be resolved. As I replied to Mr. Wheat earlier in my question, always happy to look at this again, but we have to look across the whole of the borough with the data that we have to prioritise our efforts. We don't have the time to investigate and, more importantly, rectify issues in every location where collisions occur. But if you have further data, I'd be very happy to pass that on to the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on my list, trying to catch up here, is Martijn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also have a question for the Executive Member of Active Travel and Transport and Highways. Twyford railway station serves more than 1.5 million passengers annually, providing direct services to London and connecting to the Henley branch line. As the second busiest station in Wokingham Borough, it demonstrates strong connectivity and demand. However, the village historic layout was not designed to accommodate a major railway hub, and current parking infrastructure is insufficient for this passenger volume, leading to residents' concerns. How can we make it easier for people to travel to and from the station by public transport and other more sustainable means?
Thank you, Martijn. As you say, Twyford is an important and popular transport hub with growing passenger numbers due both to the improved services offered and also due to our growing population. Passenger travel habits using the station were last surveyed in 2019, not including those who walk or arrive by train. 88% of passengers travel to the station by car. Unsurprisingly, car parking is a significant source of frustration, both for those who would like to park, but also for residents in the wider area whose streets are often used for parking. Some time ago, a few weeks ago, I asked officers to review options to improve parking, but also importantly to make travel by bus easier and travel by bike easier and safer. We are surveying passengers again next month to ensure we have a proper understanding of the current issues, including their willingness to consider different modes of transport. As I mentioned earlier, we're also undertaking a borough-wide review of bus services and developing options for potential improvements, and travel to and from Twyford Station will certainly be included in that ahead of the public consultation next year. Our walking and cycling infrastructure already includes primary routes from the north, south and west to the station, though I cannot promise this will be funded in the near future, with government funding for active travel being slashed by the previous government and yet to be restored to the previously promised level. More car parking is definitely needed. GWR is proposing a limited expansion of the car park. This is currently unfunded, but we are discussing with them options for some council investment with recovery of our costs from car park revenue. Other options may be possible and are being explored. It's important that we make Twyford Station more accessible and continue to encourage its use. And I'd like to thank you and the Twyford councillors for your commitment and support in our developing of options.
Thank you very much. Next, Pauline Jorgensen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This question would have been for Mark Ashwell, so maybe I could get a written answer. There's a disused set of courts on Chalfont Park, which have been disused for rather a long time. I've had two different residents groups come to me asking whether they can use them, one for cricket, indoor cricket actually, and the other one for tennis coaching. I've passed them on to the borough, but I'm just wondering what the borough is actually doing about this disused facility, because actually we could use it for something. Thank you.
Well, in Mark's absence, I'm sure we will get you a written response to that. It won't surprise you to know I can't answer it off the top of my head.
I wouldn't expect you to, thank you.
Right, next person to speak is Chris Cook.
Thank you. Residents have raised with Westcott councillors the case of Size restaurant in Westcott, which has planning permission for a restaurant with takeaway capabilities. But residents have said that it is acting solely as a takeaway fish and chip shop, with an increase in reported traffic, parking and obstruction problems, as well as some antisocial behaviour. A planning breach has been reported, and a recent visit by planning officers has confirmed that this is solely acting as a takeaway and that they are aware of no plans to revert to a restaurant. Could you tell us whether the council would be prepared to enforce the current planning breach, and if not, what consideration can realistically be given to reducing the problems experienced by residents?
Thank you for your question, Chris. I wasn't aware of this case, so I'll have to look into it. But our enforcement team will always try and enforce against breaches of planning permission. So we will, I think I will report that to the team and see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next one is Nagi Nagella, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to Adrian, and again on Twyford. So Norwich residents have raised lack of public transport to Twyford, where many residents take Elizabeth Line to travel away towards London or any other destinations. So so what are the plans to improve the bus services from Norwich to Twyford? Thank you.
Thank you, Negi. It would be wrong for me to say they're plans at the moment, but the difficulty of travelling from Wokingham to and from Twyford Station is well understood. There has been a suggestion to look at the park and ride site as a potential hub for that, but we're some way away from having a plan at the moment. As I say, we've recently looked at potentials to improve bus services across the borough. The results of that are currently being worked through, and there will be a public consultation on that in the new year.
Thank you very much. And Dave, just to prove I haven't forgotten you, you're next.
Thank you very much. I think that the most appropriate person's highways for this, but if it isn't, I'm happy to accept an answer from anybody. Well, anyone on the Liberal executive. Every Christmas, the residents of Risley, a village in my ward, come together to erect a Christmas tree on the green space outside the local pub. This has become a cherished community tradition that brings festive spirit to the village each year. I understand that this area of land is partly owned by the parish council and is partly owned by the borough council. In light of this, can the council executive confirm that permission will be granted for the tree to be placed on the borough council-owned portion of the land in good time for this year's festive season? It would be deeply disappointing for the community if this valued tradition was needlessly interrupted, and I hope the council will work constructively to ensure that Christmas in Risley can be celebrated as usual.
I seem to have been picked to answer that green spaces. Thank you for raising this to our attention, Dave. It sounds like a lovely tradition. I'm not aware of it or the details, but we'll be happy to look into that with officers and hope to be able to support it.
That's a yes then, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next to speak is Bess Rowland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm turning my back on Adrian because I know he's the most popular person in the room tonight. But I do have a question for him. A number of residents in my ward have commented on the recent resurfacing programme. Will the Executive Member for Active Travel and Highways and Transport comment on how resident feedback is being addressed?
Thank you, Beth. Our structural maintenance programme is a mix of plane and inlay, service dressing and maintenance of pavement and cycleways. Plane and inlay is what most residents would normally recognise as resurfacing, where the surface is removed and replaced, resulting in a high quality surface, good for a minimum of 20 years. Residents are generally very happy with this, however it's very expensive and we can only do this in areas where it's the only viable way to restore the road. In common with local authorities across the country and in line with DFT guidance, we more widely undertake surface dressing. The lower cost of this allows us to maintain around 5 times as many roads for the equivalent cost. It restores the skid resistance of the road, seals the surface to prevent or delay further potholes, and has a significantly lower carbon footprint. It does not, however, in all cases produce a perfectly flat surface in the way that plane and inlay does, and residents are understandably less satisfied by the results and comment accordingly. I'll address this specifically. All inquiries and comments relating to structural maintenance are followed up, and I've visited several sites myself with officers to understand the nature of complaints and how we're responding. The majority do relate to the unevenness of the surface. A surface dress road will not look as nice as plane and inlay and may not be as nice to drive or cycle on, but the safety and durability objectives of the work are achieved at minimum cost. With such a large programme, sometimes quality issues can arise. These are generally identified by our own inspectors who inspect the work at each stage, and any defects are rectified at the expense of the contractor. We've made improvements this year to processes and communications, which have resulted in substantially fewer complaints, despite more sites being maintained, and we will make further improvements next year. More generally, as is the case in many parts of the Council's work, funding from central government has completely failed to keep up with inflation and demand in this case being an expanding road network, more traffic, growing vehicle weights, and the consequences of many years of deferred work. I have asked the team to undertake a longer-term forecast of network condition and the potential funding requirements to inform our long-term strategy.
Thank you very much. Next is Charles Margetts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for Councillor Harding. I raised the issue with you at the last council meeting about the play equipment at Finchhampstead.
Adrian, you still have you.
Thank you. Finchhampstead Baptist Centre, which is, according to officers, weeks or months from falling apart and needing replacing. At the time, I asked you if you could guarantee there would be funding available for next year, and you explained that given the funding pressures, that may not be the case. What I was going to ask you this time is whether you can confirm if a bid has gone in the MTFP to be considered as part of the budget.
So as I sort of explained last time, I think, particularly given the challenge of this cycle, there are a number of bids. We need to review them all, and we will be doing so through the transparent community and corporate overview and scrutiny committees. It is, of course, officers are aware of it. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the Finchhampstead Parish Council for their support with this play area, and as I understand it, they are looking to collaborate with us in delivering the playground. I believe so. Due to that, a bid has gone in, and we will be considering it with all colleagues through that overview and scrutiny process.
Thank you. I've got 6 more people, so we're clearly going to go over the 20 minutes. I think it's really important that board members do ask questions, so I'd like to propose that that Council Procedure Rule 5.14.8 be suspended to allow all councillor questions to be heard. Do I have a seconder? Lots of them. Yeah, pick one. Got Rob on my right anyway. Could I have a vote? All those are for, please. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. So we continue on. My next question is Joseph Barley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, back in March, the Leader of the Council may remember I asked a question and received an answer from him on the multitude of reports that I had received on the dire state of the roads in Arborfield, namely the A327. Now, this was the result of inadequate wheel washing by the numerous developers that had been currently building within the village. When I had brought this to the Leader's attention, his response was, road sweeping around the SCL is being undertaken as expected, and it is the developer's responsibility to clear any debris which is on the roadways or footpaths. Now, whilst an appreciated statement, despite this, across the following months our community has continued to experience muddy roads throughout our ward, and most recently my hand has been forced to apply even more pressure onto the Arborfield SDO enforcement team just to get the junction at Shearlands Road cleared up, which was in a particularly dire state just a few weeks ago. And I should additionally note that in the following weeks it's still not been maintained to what I would say is an adequate standard. Now, with all of this in mind, I would like to ask the Leader of the Council why, after his previous statement, his administration is continuing to allow housing developers to play by a different set of rules to our residents and local businesses when it comes to planning enforcement, or, to be frank, any enforcement from their local authority.
Thank you for your question, Joseph. We will continue to try and liaise with developers to ensure that they meet their obligations.
Alex Feeney, next question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question, I think, is to Adrian, but could also be to Stephen. I saw an article this morning in the Wokingham paper about a petition that has been launched to extend the car park outside Twyford Rail Station. Myself and Greg, I think Greg was there, we met with Twyford Parish councillors, with GWR and with council officers to try and push for our bus route that would include Wokingham, Woodley and Twyford altogether. The GWR told us that they have already done some sort of archaeological work about this extended car park, and they've already spent sort of $200,000 on this. And from memory, the cost of extending the car park is about the same as the cost of setting up a bus route. I wondered what the Liberal Democrat position on this is.
Adrian has demonstrated throughout this evening his complete mastery of all things to do with highways, so I'm slightly hesitant to get up. But this does relate to something I've been working on for quite some time. There is an extant planning permission for the expansion of Twyford Station car park. Depending on how it's implemented, that would produce between 50 and 90 additional spaces. The barrier to that is, as always, money. And we have been actively engaged with GWR, who manage the station and run the station, to try and find a way of helping them to implement this planning permission. Now, I think at that point, we would take the view that we need to consider, alongside expansion of the capacity of the station car park, other options to try and encourage people to come to Twyford Station by more sustainable means. So I do think we have to adopt an approach that's multifaceted to addressing the challenges of Twyford Station. Twyford Station is a wonderful institution. Obviously, everyone who lives in Twyford is able to benefit from the existence of a station, but it brings with it big challenges. We've already heard this evening about the increase in usage of the station, Much of that isn't, contrary to general belief, due to the Elizabeth line. I know from personal experience, hardly anybody gets on the Elizabeth line trains at Twyford Station. They get on the GWR trains because they know those will take them to Paddington, where they can change onto the Elizabeth line. So it is actually the GWR services that are popular and are much used. But we have to find ways of addressing the increased use without clogging up Twyford's roads, without encouraging lots more people to drive in their own cars to the station than currently do.
Thank you very much. Next person is Shona Turtle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is for active travel, transport and highways. Years of maintenance neglect in Wokingham Without have led to shrubs and overgrown trees severely encroaching on pavements. The decomposed leaves and pine needles form thick layers, effectively reducing the pavement's width. We are now in a situation where the only footpath to a primary school along 9 Mile Ride is virtually impassable. Road signs and traffic lights are frequently obscured by overhanging branches and foliage, compromising safety for both drivers and pedestrians. The current trimming efforts are ineffective and are worsening the problem. It's a false economy, leading to increased long-term costs. What steps will the Council take to properly resolve these hazards, especially given the tight budget constraints?
I'm afraid that's actually for me, Shona, since my portfolio includes grounds maintenance. Regarding the encroachment of pavements, firstly, I think you absolutely agree that this has happened over the in a number of places across the borough, and this is due to having to make very difficult decisions to cut budgets. There is budget available for work on encroachment in particular. I'd ask please do send me the details of where that location is. More generally, these should go to the Cleaner and Greener team. Just to highlight, one of the big challenges we have with encroachment is that quite often with these pavements, we need traffic management, which vastly adds to the costs in order to divert pedestrians around the work teams, or indeed to let the work teams work safely with shovels and so on. But enabling active travel to schools is absolutely a priority. We do have to prioritise within the areas that are raised, but we'll do so. In regards to your comments around road signs and overhanging vegetation, again, we recognise that there has been a challenge with this. To be clear, sometimes, and in fact quite often, this can come from private land. So myself and Adrian actually met with officers earlier this week to discuss what we could do to make some strides towards improving the situation, whether or not the vegetation is from a private landowner or from indeed something that the council should be cutting back. Again, please do raise this through the reports, report overgrown vegetation portals through the website, or to myself, and I'll definitely ask officers to look into it. But we do have a resource challenge, and so prioritisations have to be made.
Thank you very much. Next person is Chetna Janthi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to the Executive Member for Active Travel, Transport and Highway. I have nothing but praise from the local residents for the recent improvements to the road surfaces in Vinash. Residents appreciate the challenges faced by the council maintaining the road network, and I would like to request Adrian to pass on the positive comments to the hardworking highway team. Thank you.
Thank you, Chetna. As councillors, we inevitably tend to focus on issues and problems. It's lovely to get positive feedback.
You have your mic on.
It's lovely to get positive feedback in this forum. I do hope that, I'm pleased to hear your residents are delighted. I hope the ongoing improvements we're making will mean that's the case for many more in the future, and I will certainly pass on your thanks to the highways officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. I think,
Thank you. Don't forget your mic. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Moses Iangumna.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for the Executive Member for Economic Development, Sports, Leisure and Arts. So I can anticipate an answer or a non-answer because it's not here. In December 2024, the Executive Councilor outlined short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies to combat the parking nuisance at Laurel Park in Lower Early. In March this year, the Executive Councilor indicated that the long-term mitigation measures would likely be in place before the new football season, which has just commenced. At a meeting of Early Neighborhood Action Group in July, the Executive Councilor proposed a working group to assist with developing the now seemingly elusive long-term solution. I volunteered to be a member of the working group. However, I'm not aware that a meeting of this working group has held, as I've received no invitation to any meeting since the initial proposal. With another football season now upon us, the traffic is now sprawling well beyond Mayfield and onto Lower Alleyway and other feeder roads quite close to where I live. Can the Executive Councilor tell me what tangible progress has been made since March 2025 and why this problem remains intractable and seemingly beyond his grasp?
Thank you, Moses. I'm sure the Executive Councillor could if he were here, but he's not, so sadly I have to report to you that I can't. However, I do note your interest in this subject, and thank you for volunteering to join the working group, and I'll make sure that people do remember that and that you get involved in that process. Thank you for asking the question. I apologise for not being able to give a proper answer to it.
Thank you. Last but not least is Vishal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure who my question is addressed to, but it's regarding dust from a construction site in my area. On Friday, I returned from holiday to see that my car was full of dust, and so was the neighbours. So I knew that it wasn't just me not having washed it for a long time. But so they did put out, demolition company did put out a message today saying that there was an issue with dust and there was a dust cloud a few days ago before I came back. My question is, what is the council doing to make sure this doesn't happen again throughout the continuation of the demolition and again when the construction of the new place happens in Shinfield? Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal. Am I correct in assuming you're referring to the demolition of the old County Hall building?
Sorry, I should have mentioned Shire Hall building.
Yeah. I have talked to council officers in enforcement about this matter. They have been out there to try and enforce and try and ensure that damping methods are used to stop the amount of dust that's being generated. They have been out several times and will continue to monitor this and try and ensure there's the minimum disruption for residents. Inevitably, I'm afraid, when you do demolish a building of that kind, there will be some particles come in the air, but we're trying to minimise that, and enforcement are on this case and will do their best to try and control it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes, excuse me, that's the end of those questions. Bassett.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I've also got the question.
My mistake, I'm sorry. Bassett, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's the last question, and it should be to the most favourite person in the room tonight. Executive Member for Active Travel and Transport. Number of residents in my ward have raised concerns about traffic into Wokingham, which I understand is because of roadworks on the Western Gateway. Can you comment on what is being done to minimize the disruption this is causing? Thank you.
Thank you, Bassett, and thank you for an opportunity to comment on this subject. The Western Gateway works are an essential part of the South Wokingham strategic development and will in due course increase the road capacity to accommodate predicted future traffic, as well as improving facilities for walking and cycling in the area. The work has been designed to minimise disruption in terms of the individual road closures and their duration. We're currently in phase 3 of the work, which requires closure of the Finchampstead Road for vehicles between the Tesco and Molly Millers roundabouts, both of which are being improved. With only one remaining north-south crossing of the railway at the Barkham Road level crossing, this inevitably causes considerable congestion in peak hours and in turn impacts east-west traffic through the town. Officers are monitoring congestion and mitigating it to the extent possible. They have confirmed the traffic lights at the level crossing are operating optimally and that diversion routes are operating as planned. Congestion at peak times is considerably reduced from the start of this phase thanks to residents adjusting their travel patterns as anticipated. We have postponed a number of requested utility works that could have contributed to the congestion, whilst permitting urgent works which are required to maintain safety or supply to residents. We are reviewing other utility projects on a case-by-case basis, recognising that some of these improve the robustness of the network and reduce disruption in the longer term. The Council is communicating with residents through its normal channels of email, social media and our website, plus roadside signage. A forecast of future work can be found via the roads section of the Council's website, where residents can also sign up to our weekly newsletter and for news on the South Wokingham development. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the majority of drivers for their understanding and compliance with diversions and encourage them to always drive considerately in congested and surrounding areas. We are taking action against drivers who flout legally enforceable restrictions where this is within our power. When complete, the South Wokingham Distributor Road and Western Gateway will provide essential additional capacity for traffic and improve facilities for walking and cycling. Whilst short-term disruption to achieve this is sadly unavoidable, please assure your residents that the Council is taking every reasonable step to mitigate this.
Thank you. I believe that does now complete the questions. So we'll move on to item 52, which is statements by the leader and the executive councillors. Does the leader or any exec members wish to speak? Adrian, you've got your mic on still. So if you put your hands up and we'll make a note. Thank you. Right. Stephen, if you'd like to start off, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to take this opportunity to update Council on the discussions taking place on mayoral strategic authorities. Talks have been taking place between councils about the possibility of a strategic authority for this region. Both Berkshire and Oxfordshire have similar strategic board priorities relating to matters such as strategic infrastructure, affordable housing, jobs and skills, and net zero. If agreed at a future point, this alignment will help us to establish the agenda for a future mayoral strategic authority and an incoming mayor. The 6 Berkshire unitary councils, Oxfordshire County Council, and the Oxfordshire District Councils are led by different political groups, Liberal Democrats, Labour and Conservatives. Whatever their reservations about elected mayors, leaders of all these councils recognise that a mayoral strategic authority is the best means to have a regional voice at national level and to lever in investment, public and private. The financial opportunities are important, with many of the councils set to lose government funding in the 3-year local government finance settlement. Mayoral strategic authorities provide a route to money that would otherwise be unavailable to us. We all view the potential prize as great and believe that refusing to participate is, while theoretically possible, in practice very unwise, as the government's clear ambition is to have all parts of England covered by mayoral strategic authorities, with mayors sitting on a council of the nations and regions alongside government ministers. Crucially, if we do not engage in the process, we will sooner or later have a mayoral strategic authority imposed upon us without our having the chance to shape it to realise the ambitions and meet the needs of our communities. Our agreement on the benefits we could secure is matched by our agreement that we need to establish governance arrangements that protect the sovereign authority of individual councils. Parliamentary legislation will to some extent set these securities in place, with the mayors obliged to work with a cabinet made up of representatives from each of the constituent councils. But we believe, as I have mentioned, that developing our own agenda now and agreeing in advance of a mayor's election on our desired priorities and work programme is a further and important safeguard against misrule and bad decision making. And I'll report further on our work towards a mayoral strategic authority at the next council meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Stephen. Catherine, would you like to come next?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to update Council on a hugely successful summer of activities across our parks, countryside and community venues, showcasing not only the social and environmental value of these spaces, but also the financial benefits they bring in helping us support essential services. At the Dinton Activity Centre, young people enjoyed a full programme of Wild Days holiday camps, giving them fun, friendship and a chance to connect with the outdoors. Our events team continues to go from strength to strength, delivering an impressive variety of days out that are both memorable for residents and visitors and that generate valuable income. The new Friday Sundowners on the Deck proved a huge success, combining local artists, boat hire, food and drink in a relaxed, family-friendly evening. And our first medieval jousting event attracted nearly 5,000 visitors over a single weekend, with fantastic feedback, and I'm pleased to say that the dates are already secured for 2026. We continue to work with partners, including JL Events, to bring variety to not just to Dinton, but also to California Country Park. And while summer is peak season, activity doesn't stop when the days shorten. We have a third comedy night booked for October, and in November there'll be a laser light show, which is a spectacular and environmentally friendly alternative to fireworks, which reduce noise and air pollution while protecting wildlife, livestock and pets. Alongside this vibrant programme, our countryside team has also been busy enhancing local biodiversity. We've renovated more than 20 barn owl boxes, originally installed in the early 2000s and funded through developer contributions. This long-running project has already supported over 280 chicks to fledge and has helped quadruple the local barn owl population. At Highwood in Woodley, we have continued vital restoration of the last remnant of Bulmesh Heath. And at Dinton, we're proud to unveil a new Swift tower at a time when Swift numbers nationally have declined by nearly 70% since 1995. This builds on our planning work, ensuring Swift nesting boxes in new developments, and will help future generations continue to enjoy these remarkable birds. And close to my home, at Charville, reed bed enhancements are adding to the network we've created across the Loddon Valley, already one of the best areas in southeast England to see wintering bitterns. These achievements show what can be delivered when we combine creativity, partnership and good stewardship of our natural environment. We're not only bringing enjoyment and well-being to residents, but attracting visitors, generating income and leaving a lasting legacy for wildlife. And I'd like to thank everyone involved, staff, volunteers and partners, for making this summer such a success.
Thank you very much. Adrian.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to announce that work will start in the new year on the long-anticipated active travel improvements between Woodley Precinct and Palmer Park in Reading. This will make it safer and easier for people to walk, cycle and wheel along this frequently used route, serving important destinations, community facilities and a busy school. It will connect into safe routes onward to central Reading, enabling safer and easier travel into the centre of the town. The scheme was selected for development in 2021 and has undergone 3 public consultations, with changes at each stage to accommodate resident feedback. Individual traffic regulation orders will be issued for the changes that require them, with the first of these starting consultation this Monday coming. Work is expected to start in January and finish in October next year, with dates and details of individual phases being communicated nearer the time, including by letter to residents along the routes and parts affected. Details of the scheme and route are available on the Council's website via the Roads and Road Maintenance page. The scheme is funded by grants from Active Travel England, made possible due to our above-average capability assessment awarded to the Council in recognition of our commitment to making walking, cycling and wheeling easier and safer. I would like to acknowledge the work of the previous administration on this scheme and to thank officers for the painstaking detailed work to accommodate this high-quality scheme into an existing busy environment with many competing demands for space. The future of our local transport system and our ability to travel efficiently and sustainably depends on giving people options in addition to the car. I'm delighted we're finally able to progress this scheme, realising a significant step in the Council's commitment to walking, cycling and wheeling. And I hope to be able to give details of another significant scheme to improve walking and cycling in the near future, utilising further money awarded to the Council this year.
Thank you very much. Imogen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. By now, many of you will be aware that we've been facing a potential £47 million shortfall in our budget plans over the next 3 years. This is based on the calculations provided as part of the consultation proposals for the local government finance settlement. This is the funding that passed to us from central government. Our current budget plans were not expected to see such severe impacts imposed on Woking Borough Council. And while I know that there are campaigns to get the government to change this proposal, we are hopeful that the government will see sense. We cannot rely on that happening, and essentially we need to plan for the worst case scenario. It is during these autumn months that we collectively set the budget for next year and the drafts for the following years. To meet the budget needs, we are going to have to make decisions that will be very difficult and most likely unpopular. We will collectively need to ensure that the public understands why we are going that route. If we do this, I am confident that Woking Borough Council will still continue to meet our residents' needs and will still be able to prioritise those that need our help the most. I must strongly thank our officers who have been working hard to find the details and present these options to councillors in these difficult circumstances. It must be hard for them to go through this. But this is why we need the help from all of our councillors to make sure this happens. For the benefit of all of our residents, all ideas are welcome. If you don't like a particular direction, you will have the opportunity to express this along with your proposals for alternative funding. It is that alternative funding recommendations that are the most important, because we need to hear what you would do instead. If you want something to change or go differently, we do need to hear what these alternative suggestions are going to be, and we will be happy to listen and consider them. The budget will be brought to you for scrutiny by each area, as usual, by February, and through our scrutiny committees, you will have had the options to see and review all of the budget and consider the choices. Constructive criticism is certainly welcome, and we want to find the best ways to serve all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Imogen. Move on to item 53, which is the statements from council-owned companies. Does any councillor wish to make a statement under this item?
I think I wish to make a statement that we don't have a statement, but to anticipate a statement coming in October that it may well be quite significant in terms of the future of the housing companies.
Thank you for that non-statement, I think. Okay, nobody else. So move on to item 54, which is motions. We have a motion number 531 from Councillor Andy Ng-Si-Hung. Will you be proposing the motion, Andy?
Yes, thank you.
And do you have a seconder, please? Thank you.
Yes. This motion is for the Hong Konger who fled for freedom. This motion is for opposing the change of BNO path from 5 to 10 years. This motion is for the UK government to keep its promise and duty and glory. Rockingham is home to a growing population of people from former British colony of Hong Kong, including myself. Many of us deeply value freedom, democracy, and human rights, have suffered through the crackdown in Hong Kong. In 2020, after the Beijing government introduced the Hong Kong National Security Law, the British government introduced the British National Overseas Visa for many Hong Kongers. The UK made a serious promise to grant permanent residency after 5 years. Since then, hundreds of thousands of Hong Kongers have moved or are planned to move to the UK because of this promise. Now, that promise is at risk. The government is reportedly considering changing the path to 10 years, even those already here. How can it be that? It will place heavy burden on Hong Kongers, such as visa renewal costs and IHS payment, job and housing instability, and college fee that can be tens of thousands of pounds more. Moreover, it throws our nation's commitment and promise into the sea. Do not follow Nigel Farage. In past few days, he even suggests that none of the Hong Kongers will be granted permanent residency. Although his statement was somewhat unclear afterward, it still demonstrates a ridiculous and harmful direction against us. Do not follow this direction. Don't try to counter him by following the same path. It's not working. And most importantly, it's wrong. Do not follow the wrong. We should stand firm in our values, our true values. Be a true politician that is true to your heart and does the true thing. Colleagues, I will do whatever I can to protect Hong Kongers and the UK and its promise and its glory. We must stand firm to keep the BNO 5-year path from London to Brighton, from Wokingham to Scotland, from Council to Parliament, on the street or on the line. We must stand together. Together, we are strong. Together, we will win. Stand with Hong Kong is not just a slogan, it's an action. And colleagues, let's take the action. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Does anybody wish to speak against the motion? No. If that's the case, then we can go straight to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Just one abstention, is Alex. Okay. Thank you. That is carried. Right, we now move on to motion 532. Councillor Pauline Jorgensen, you're proposing the motion. Would you like to move that, please? And do you have a seconder?
I do have a seconder. Rebecca's going to second it. Thank you. It seems to be Hong Kong night tonight. Quite a coincidence. Since 2021 and the launch of the British National Overseas Visa Scheme to give safe haven to people fleeing a repressive government, Chinese government in Hong Kong, over 500,000 people have left Hong Kong. 220,000 visas have been issued and 150,000 Hong Kongers have made UK their home. We welcomed Hong Kongers to Woking Borough in 2021 and they are now one of the largest emerging communities in recent years. This is evidenced by 387 school applications from Hong Kong families in the first year of this scheme. A cautious estimate is that there is between 1,000 and 2,000 Hong Kong people in the borough. Despite this, as I've said before, they don't get a mention in our Equality and Diversity report, which means they may well slip through the net. I know it's been promised that that will be changed, but I think it's important that we cover all communities in that report. Early Woodley and Shinfield are popular places for Hong Kongers to build their new lives. I've talked to many Hong Kongers at our regular meetings and surgeries. One comment I get regularly is it's difficult for older members of their families to access English as a foreign language courses and that there are long waiting lists. This is the reason I've raised this motion. Being able to speak English is essential for work, school and integration into the community. Many other minority groups have come here over the years can vouch for that. I am sure that we all want to ensure that we give everybody the best possible opportunity to integrate, get out and about, work and develop friendships. And English language fluency is fundamental to this. I ask you to support my motion to review this service, assess the provision of additional language courses for Hong Kongers, and ensure that the provision is adequate for those who require them. The CFO has indicated the cost will be zero or negligible, and there is significant benefit to both residents and the country as a whole. So why would we not do this?
Thank you very much. Can I ask if there's anybody against this motion, please? Rachel.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to propose an amendment, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to accept Rachel's amendment. It's a good amendment.
Thank you. I think it's caught me out there. Yeah, I'd like to ask your seconder whether you want to speak now or to reserve your right.
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm just going to take some advice because that has kind of thrown me. We've now got a... Could I ask for a seconder for that amendment, please? Thank you, Nagy. Right. Yeah. Rachel, would you like to speak to that amendment, please?
Thank you. I will be brief. We heard earlier that in July 2023, councillors agreed that Woking Borough Council should be a borough of sanctuary, welcoming those fleeing violence and persecution in their own countries, no matter their country of origin or how they arrived in the borough. As well as recognising the positive contribution they make to Wokingham, it's our responsibility to actively seek ways of supporting them. This amendment aims to make the wording of the original motion clearer and the intent wider. In the main, as you can see, the amendment does two things. It notes the importance of ensuring that language is not a barrier to accessing the services to which people are entitled, and it notes the importance of additional language courses, not just for those from Hong Kong, but for anyone who requires them. I hope everyone can support the amendment.
Thank you, Rachel. You have a seconder. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I reserve my right, Mayor.
Thank you. She has done that, yeah. Okay, I intend to read out, Stephen, I've got you. I intend to read out the amendment as we've got it on the yellow sheets, really just for the people that are listening in. So there have been a significant number of people settling in Woking Borough from Hong Kong, mainly following the launch of the Hong Kong British National Overseas Visa Scheme in 2021. The scheme reflects the UK's historic and moral commitment to the people of Hong Kong. This council notes the importance of access to English as an additional language courses to people settling in the borough from abroad, and the importance of ensuring that language is not a barrier to accessing services. This council, one, acknowledges that the increased number of these Hong Kong British national overseas visa holders and other Hong Kongers who come to the UK may make it necessary to increase provision of access to English as an additional language course for all those who require it. This council too will undertake a review of this service and assess whether there is adequate provision in the borough, specifically but not exclusively, for those holding Hong Kong British national overseas visas and other Hong Kongers who come to the UK. And this council will review the level of take-up of additional language courses, producing an action plan setting out what steps can be taken to engage with residents and make residents aware of these services, as well as those provided by education partners. So hopefully we're all clear what the amendment is. Stephen, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking in favour of the amendment, and I hope we can all agree it. I'm glad that Pauline has indicated she's happy with it. I do feel I need to say something quite important here. I know Hong Kongers in Wokingham, and incidentally, they're not just confined to Early and Woodley and Shinfield. There are a lot of Hong Kongers who reside in my own ward of Twyford and
Sorry,
Bascombe
Stephen,
and
can
Hurst.
I interrupt you, Rebecca?
I am sorry, but where is this in the procedure that somebody else is allowed to speak for this amendment? We should be just going straight to the vote now on this amendment.
Yeah, unless anybody wants.
Right, I've been advised that I need to ask if anybody's speaking against the amendment. And if there's and if there is nobody speaking against it, then we can go straight to the vote. So we have a substantive motion, and I've read it out. So can I take a vote, please? All those in favour of that substantive motion, please show. I will ask anyway, anybody against? Any abstentions? No, that is carried. Thank you very much. And I believe that concludes the meeting. Thank you very